Welcome to the Cherry Picker, the horror movie podcast where we like to kill people, but not really. I'm your host, Zach Cherry, and with me is...
Did you really think I'd try to kill myself? Eddie of Edward is Truth. That sounded deeper than I intended it, but it was intense.
Yeah, it was. And we've got a very intense and divisive movie for you today, because we are talking about hens, is what I like to call it, but Halloween Ends, released October 14th, 2022, in theaters and on Peacock. And this is gonna be fun. Hens. Well, the
hens, because
the marketing is just ends, and it's just like ends this Halloween. Yeah. It's just like, what are you doing? We just call it what it is. I like.
They don't want people calling it hens, going like, "What? A rooster in the hen house this Halloween." But anyway, before we dive in, I didn't do a thorough synopsis, as I usually don't with these new movies, because I mean, if you just saw it, then you know, and if you haven't seen it, don't listen to this. Go watch it.
Yeah, this is gonna be all spoilers. Like, we're not gonna pussyfoot around certain things. Like, we're just diving right in. So
but just so Andre doesn't feel completely like left out, I can read one sentence from IMDb.
Well, I'm sure he'd appreciate that.
Okay, cool. This is for you, Andre. The saga of Michael Myers and Laurie Strode comes to a spine-chilling climax in this final installment of this trilogy. Hens. Here you go.
Oh, wow. I miss when you do, like, it's thematic, like you do it in the voice of a specific character.
What voice was I going to use for this movie, though?
Maybe like Corey's mom.
I mean, that's later, definitely. That's coming up, but not. I don't. Yeah.
We're just saving that one.
I'm saving it up because I have a point
the dessert.
To make.
Yeah.
I have a point to make it with that and some others.
Okay, can't wait.
Yeah.
Okay, well, before I say anything, I want to hear your take on things, because you've been, not that you're like super like high on the David Gordon Green timeline, but you really liked 2018, and I'm very tepid on that, and I think we were both aligned with kills, so I just want to see what your take was.
Okay. I don't want to put too much on the table, because there is a progression. I want to get into what it was like to move through this movie. Doesn't mean we have to stick to a strict chronological timeline or anything like that. But I will say, had next to no expectations of this movie, exposed myself to no trailers. Literally, if there was a trailer on YouTube while I was watching another video or something like that, I muted it. I skipped it as soon as possible. I had no exposure to it. If I was in a movie theater and the trailer came on, I looked at my feet and tried not to listen. I tried to think, like, what color would my shoelaces be if they weren't this color? Like anything, just to kind of like let my mind wander, so nothing would stick, and nothing did. I just heard a lot of and whatever. So going in, like I said, I didn't know what to expect, and it was kind of a lark. Because I watched it the Thursday night that it dropped. I thought it was coming out on Friday for some reason.
I think because you watched it on Peacock,
Peacock,
they changed their release plan like at the last minute, and they're like, okay, we're also going to release it Thursday night.
Nice, because I got home from work, and it was the last night, because I'm on call right now, and it was the last night I knew I was going to have absolute freedom. So I thought, oh my God, Halloween Ends. I can like watch it uninterrupted and not be worrying about like a phone going off or something before we record this. And I asked my mom if she wanted to watch it with me. And granted, it's after dark, and she does not watch horror movies after dark. And she said, oh, you mean like watch it now? I'm like, yeah. And, okay. Like almost adventurous, like, I haven't watched a horror movie like at nighttime in such a long time. Yeah, I'll try that. She's so cute. So I got it all queued up. She went to the restroom, and we sat down, we started watching it. And I wasn't excited. I mean, even I remember when Halloween Kills and I sat and I was streaming it, I got a little excited when the music, the low rumble started and the Universal logo and everything. Yeah. With this one, I didn't do that. I was just kind of like, I'm happy I'm going to get to see this a little early. And from the get-go, the opening music cue, and that we were hearing from the what's it called?
Well, like like this. It's the radio station, the Willie the Kid, and this like segues into this rockabilly thing.
Yeah, the music
I liked
in
that.
A completely different tone.
Yeah,
I did too. I was intrigued. I was like, oh, this is different. And I didn't have a moment where like, did I walk into the wrong theater or anything like that? Because I'm streaming it. I saw, Laurie and Michael back to back, and everything. And so I know
they're like, get a load of this guy.
Yeah, right. It should have been like a full
like
body
real estate
thing
agent like poster.
Yeah, but also where you see their feet and both of them have like a flexed foot pointing out, like 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 Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck or something.
Yeah.
But
or Minnie. Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, exactly. But no, so that happened and I was intrigued. And then the opening sequence. Well, I mean, before we get into it, do you want to do like an overview or anything? Like, sure.
I'm Zach
Cherry, and here's what I have to say.
I'm Zach Cherry, and here's what I gotta say. I'm very much on the same like wavelength as you of just. I had no expectations. We've talked about this. We talked about this in 2018 and Kills episodes that we did. And I said that, I was numb to this timeline at this point. Going to see ends felt like an obligation to me. That I'm just like, I'm going to do
going
it.
to a wedding.
I'm not anticipating this movie to be good. I'm not excited for it in any way. Like you just rip the Band-Aid off, see it, and then it's over with. Like I was more excited for it to end. And
yeah,
I went into it and there are a lot of moments throughout where I was just like, what am I even watching here? Like, what the fuck is this? But as it went on, I'm just like, really started to appreciate the absurdity of it. And because I mean, like, like us, like we've talked about Halloween 5 and other chapters before. We haven't like done full episodes on them, but just like the appreciation we have for kind of the offbeat marches to the beat of its own drum, like that kind of style. And as it went on, I'm just like, this is gonna piss off a lot of people. I think I like this. And I think it's because I mean, like, I like this on two levels. So I do think this is the best of the trilogy, I will say. But I like this on two levels because on one hand, I felt that, like I said before, this is going to piss off a lot of people. And just me being like the petty little bitch that I am, I liked the fact that, I've listened to people praise this timeline for the last 4 years of just how this is finally what Halloween is. And I've kind of like, I've said my piece about it, but I just like, I've also sat back and I like the criticisms that I have are they're not fully like in your face. It's more just like sort of like weaved in. They're very hidden in certain things. So it's just, they're not overtly present. So I think like a lot of people who've been praising these movies are just doing it more so on an aesthetic level. And I think that like the movies have been like looked really great and all that. But the faults that I've noticed were just more so just like the hidden under the covers and whatnot. So I was not surprised by this movie. I mean, I was surprised that I enjoyed it, but I was not surprised by the fact that it was going to be so divisive and it was going to piss off so many people. And I think just the fact that it's like now, like it's almost like the veil has been pulled off and now everyone is seeing these movies for what I've been seeing them as for the last 4 years. Like that's how or just like who David Gordon Green is as a filmmaker. So it's almost like like finally, like I feel validated in a way. I mean, even though people are like, those two movies were great, this one sucks, but it's still like, this was his. Even though there's not really a clear trajectory, like they totally made this shit up as they went along. But I feel like where it was going, like that's just what I saw. Just because it just got more and more ridiculous from like 2018. Because we had the Sartain stuff in 2018, Kills with the mob thing. Then just like, there's not gonna be a conclusion to this trilogy that's going to satisfy people. Like it's just the through line is all over the place. So I kind of, knowing that it was going to be like that, but just like not realizing like how absurd and how much I was going to enjoy just the fact that people hate this movie so much. That's one reason that I like it. The other reason that I like it is because I think that for the first time, like that David Gordon Green has directed these movies, he actually did a competent job telling a mostly cohesive story from beginning to end. I felt like there wasn't too many tangents where it went off into all these other places. It was primarily like, there are issues and we'll get into them, but like primarily we're seeing Corey's story throughout most of it. We're not kind of like jumping back and forth to places tonally. Like it was very consistent, and I love consistency. Like I'm a huge proponent of consistency in any sort of work of fiction. That because of that, like that's probably the main reason that I enjoy this more, because you know, even as I was watching, I'm like, even though this is stupid and crazy, I'm actually having a good time, and I actually feel like I was like, I will watch this again to, you know, research to do this and other videos on my channel. Like whereas like the other movies, I was like, after Kills, I was just like, oh god, I cannot. So yeah, I think this is the best one of what he did. I mean, it's not, you know, if I did my rankings, like it's still not a good Halloween movie. Like there are tons that are above this, but still, like out of the three, I think it was okay. I think it was the best one.
This has become the most interesting thing about the movie for me, regardless of how I feel about what I feel, which we'll get into. Yeah. But it's so, what I without revealing too much, I definitely got a sense at some point like, oh, this is going to piss a lot of people off. And it has. What I wasn't prepared for was how mixed the response would be overall. Like I couldn't escape in my and I tried not to expose myself to too much of it because I didn't want to let anything too much in and make this be a discussion about the reception of the movie as opposed to a discussion about the movie. Yeah. That said, I was stunned how many people were just kind of shrugging and going, I liked it, and how many people were going, well, that was a piece of crap, you know. Yeah. And then in between too, like some people going like, well, not my favorite. Like, I mean, it's just such a mix. Like you don't know unless you know somebody personally and you can have an expectation. But if you have a room full of strangers, you have absolutely no idea what you're going to be walking into if you screen this movie for them, and then afterwards you walk in and go like, so what'd you think? There's no way to gauge what the response will be, and that's also kind of exciting. But that said, okay, so the opening sequence. I was spellbound. I was like, okay, we're still doing this subverting your expectations thing that was introduced in a way that I appreciated in 2018 while still kind of serving up themes, just kind of like turned on their head. Like we've got a babysitter, but it's a young man now. And we've got Halloween night, but Michael Myers is gone. So surely, you know, like, how is it gonna manifest in this opening? Like you can feel it's an opening sequence too. Like it's got that distinct feel to it. So I was totally on board. And also what's more, I really, really liked just watching the interactions of the characters, and I could even feel the tension of like the shadow like running behind Corey, like when he didn't know where the little boy, what was the boy's name? Jeremy. When he didn't know where Jeremy was. Mm-hmm. And you just see like little whoosh, whoosh. And I was like, wait, is it Michael? Is it the boy? Is it like all going to be like, I was so, I just leaned in, you know, and I thought it was doing something really, really well. Yeah. And I was so excited to see where it went. And then I expected Michael to be the thing in the dark, you know, the thing that's going to like, that's why the door's open. That's why you hear muffled screams upstairs and everything like that. So when it finally got revealed that Corey gets locked in the attic and kicks the door down and knocks little Jeremy to his death from, what is it, 3-4 flights of stairs? I don't even know how many flights it was. Yeah. 3 stories, and he falls to his death in front of his parents, who are overhearing the yelling of like, I'm gonna kill you, you little shit, and all that stuff. And then opening credits, I'm like, what the fuck am I watching? Yeah. This is different. And I was really excited. Yeah. And I wanted to know Did you? I couldn't tell. Because I got the count wrong with the pumpkins in Halloween Kills opening sequence. Yeah. I counted 6 this time, but I don't trust me doing the math.
No. I counted.
Were there 6 of them, and why?
I counted 6, and here's my take on that: is that
good.
They represent the 6 decades that this franchise has been in existence. Because you've got the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, 2010s, and 2020s. That's right. That's just what I think. I don't know if there's a more accurate reason for that. But also the style and the font and the color of the credits as well.
Yeah, didn't get that until the meme afterwards.
Yeah, it's an homage to Halloween 3, and I picked up that immediately because I went with a friend and he's just like, "Why is it blue?" And I was just like, "Oh," and I'm like, "Oh, because of Halloween 3." It's not overly apparent because that had like the beep, 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 you know, the
right,
LED like orange pumpkin in the background.
Of course, which I love. I love that pumpkin. But I was still kind of like recovering. Like I noticed the font was different, but I didn't recognize it because I was also too thrown by what just happened. And also I loved what I was absorbing just emotionally without really kind of understanding exactly what they were trying to do with the pumpkin. It was just I kept seeing like rebirth, like something kind of like, you know, is made and presented and then slowly starts to rot, but another thing grows.
I mean, that would make sense with the decades, because I mean, it's just like it started with the 70s, and then there was like the resurgence with Return of Michael Myers and H2O, arguably, and Rob Zombie,
even with the timelines,
David Gordon Green, and the last pumpkin is not a jack-o'-lantern, it's just like a
no, it's just
pumpkin.
A pumpkin. Yes.
So that
I was excited because I just kind of,
but then it like tears open, and I was expecting to see a skull.
Oh, no. Because that would have been if it were the second movie, not the third. But what I loved about that was the fact that, like, here, not a jack-o'-lantern, but a pumpkin is just kind of, like, floating toward me. And it gave me this incredible sense of anticipation of, like, oh, because the movie's happening to me right now, it hasn't manifested yet, so what is it going to be? And then it just exposes, like, these innards. Yeah. Very Halloween 5 also. But, But
I wanted to say, and I don't know if this is just me, but I was, like, looking at the credits, and it looked like, because I saw this in the theater in IMAX, and I noticed that they spelt Lindsay's name wrong. Like they spelt it with like the A, like the male version of how you spell Lindsay. But then I was watching the Peacock version, and I saw that it was the regular one. So I don't know if I'm just like, it's Mandela effect, or they had actually messed it up, because apparently in Halloween 4, Lindsay is credited as Leslie, even though because the actress who plays her's name is Leslie. So I'm just like, oh, there they go, messing up Lindsay's name again. Just a little side thing that I noticed. If you go,
that's inside baseball.
If anyone goes to see it in the theater, and you're listening to this, like, please let me know. How did they spell it in the opening credits? Because I thought I saw the Lindsay when it's supposed to be E.
Okay.
Anyway, I don't. That's gonna bother me so much, because I'm probably not gonna go see it in the theater again. But I did want to save the opening scene.
Yeah.
And just in terms of like the marketing of this movie as well, because the entire thing was kind of spoiled for I think a lot of people, just based on the fact that Blumhouse basically revealed months before, even like we got a trailer, is just that this is a story about this boy named Corey Cunningham, and he has this incident that turns him into this pariah of Haddonfield or something. So they basically like spelled it all out for people, because I remember I was just hearing things. I didn't see the actual like release that Blumhouse put out, but I just remember hearing a lot of people talking about Corey Cunningham, and I was just like, was actively avoiding any sort of Halloween Ends promo, not even out of like fear of being spoiled, but just more so out of disinterest. And the fact that I had heard so much about this character before even a trailer had come out, and even like while actively avoiding it, it just kind of shows a failure on like a studio's part of revealing this information. Because if I had known nothing, I would have watched that opening scene and I would have been expecting Michael Myers to show up, but because I knew that, I'm just like, well, nothing's gonna happen, because I even saw like interviews with David Gordon Green where he basically said that like Michael is going to meet an unlikely ally or just like a collaborator or so. Yeah, that he said. And then Jamie Lee Curtis is like, the opening, Jamie Lee and her spoilers, just like the opening scene of this movie is every parent's worst nightmare. So I'm just like, oh, cool. So the kid's gonna die, and it's basically gonna be because of Corey. So I did like, it was already telegraphed for me, and so nothing in this movie really kind of shocked me in terms of where the story was going. Like I knew terrible. That, like, I mean, just to jump ahead for a second here, but I knew like the final confrontation, because they were really in the marketing, like being like the final fight between Michael and Laurie. And I'm just like, I'm sure like everything that we see in the trailer of just like that little like kitchen scrap, like that's going to be it. That's all it's going to be. And I mean, more or less it was. So that's why I think it's funny that people are so miffed about this, because it's just like, are you like, read between the lines? Like it was all presented to us that this is what it was going to be. So,
and we've been here before. They've done this to us before. They've told us Jamie Lee Curtis is in Resurrection, and then you go and you're like, no, I will say that
Jamie Lee Curtis was actually in this movie more than she was in 2018 and Kills. Ryan Showers did the math with his screen time.
Of course he did.
Analytics. So yeah, I think she like, clocked in just like under 30 minutes, which is like closer in line with like, how much she was in H2O, and I think like the original as well. So she was in this quite a bit. But yeah, just in terms of like that opening scene, I think it was well done. It was tense. Like there are certain things that I might have done differently. But I think that had I not known everything going in, like it would have worked very effectively. I just thought it was kind of hilarious when you see the shot of like kind of the depth of field of like the parents are in the doorway and the mom turns around. She's like, what was that? And you just see Jeremy like fall like splat like that. I howled. Honestly, but because I mean, first of all, like Jeremy is such a fucking little shit. As are I think most of the basically all of the victims in this movie. That's just like, I have no sympathy for any of them. That it was kind of just seeing like certain people and just like, yeah. You do that. So fuck Jeremy, and and that's my take on the opening scene.
I just didn't want to see Corey suffer because of Jeremy, particularly because they did not have a bond. It seemed like he was trying to establish one by letting him break the rules and letting him like watch a spooky movie and everything.
Well, The Thing,
we'll get it,
which is homage to the first movie of watching the
Thing
from another world.
From another world. I was gonna say The Thing that couldn't die, and that's not it. But okay, I got my first kind of like moment right after the opening credits, though, when I heard what I perceived to be another damn Laurie narration. Thank God she was just reading her book, or typing her book, and we're just in her like the sonic version of her mind's eye, like her mind's ear or whatever. So that was fine. But I that was the first moment where I was just kind of like, oh no. And like, I hated that in Halloween Kills. I don't need it. You didn't have it in the first movie in a way that that stayed with me. So don't do that. And then introducing like this whole theme of the descent of Haddonfield, like how the fallout after Michael, like people seemed to just kind of like lose hope and people were killing themselves and each other. And I'm like, okay, that's the direction. I mean, we're going bleak, like, like Corey's, that opening scene ends bleakly. So like, okay, so it's going to be another kind of Haddonfield. All right, why not? But the thing is, immediately, I think what kind of like, again, the subversion, because it could have gone either way, that whole concept, was seeing Laurie and Allison living together. Yeah. Something about that, it's like those are the two members of that family who I cared about the most from Halloween 2018. Right. And the fact that I get to see her grandmother give her her parents' wedding rings and to see her so moved by it, I'm like, oh my God, I felt like I don't, you know,
it only took 4 years, but they managed to do it on the same week that the movie was taking place. Yeah.
But I mean, it was like, I don't know, it was just kind of like,
it was moving.
Because I don't adore, you know, I mean, I like Halloween 2018 Kills. There's things I like and there's things I don't like.
Yeah.
But I realized how much I cared about the characters, particularly the ones who survived.
Yeah, I did not miss Karen at all in this, and that pains me to say that as like as a Judy Greer fan. That I just
it's not Judy's fault.
Yeah.
Judy's golden, but she had a crappy character.
Yeah.
But I even loved seeing like Allison like talking about not going to the party, and Laurie's kind of like upset and wants her to go out there and have fun, because I'm like, yes, that's the dynamic that I loved from 2018 was like, go to Mexico, have fun. She's always been at her granddaughter to just kind of get out there and live life. And especially
I think she's the most authentic with, like, I think just like the more human side of Laurie, like that the one shred of humanity that was kind of like left there was how she was with Allison. And I think like, yeah, like you did mention that in 2018 where she's just like, fuck college, and just basically just being that like the rebellious grandmother, just like, fuck mom and dad, like who cares? And you know, like takes out the switchblade, like, are you gonna slash the tire or am I? Like, you know, she's basically like that. And then the scene later on where she's just like, just make him, show him your tits, and you know, like that's I really like this version of Laurie, and
me too.
You know, we'll get more into this, like, because I really wish that this was 2018, that this is where she started off with, because I mean, just like, even I know that like she's been through therapy in the last 4 years, but it's just like the trauma that happened in 2018 versus the trauma that happened in 1978 is like 1978 is like this, like 2018, like whew. And she is so much, I mean, because obviously she's been able to go to therapy, but it's still like, it's so jarring to me that like this is like the version of Laurie that we see, because it's just like, you know, she still has her demons, they're still hidden, we know that, but like I would have rather seen this version of Laurie from the get-go, because this is a version of Laurie that I can connect with and I can understand, and it's more in line with like the H2O Laurie. And I'm going to talk a lot about H2O in this podcast, just in terms of
you always do.
I know.
Of course.
I don't know why. Like, I just like it. I mean, like, it's not a perfect movie by any means, but Jamie Lee Curtis in that movie is golden. And I do, and just touching on the narration that you were talking about, like, I did not like that, actually. Yeah. I thought that could have been taken out, because I feel like for as much as I do enjoy Laurie in this movie, and I think some of the best moments are those character moments, like, you know, where she's with Allison and Lindsay and just things that like that, which are just nice to see. But I feel like the narration and writing the book added nothing. It was filler that was unnecessary, could have been taken out. And I feel that most of Laurie's story or just character arc in this movie is pointless. Like, she's there, and I think that what happened, or just like kind of like the main outcome of the movie, is that there's a lot of, they put all of their focus into Corey. They really built up his story, and then there's really like no payoff to that. But then Laurie, there's no build up at all, but she gets all the payoff. So it was almost like this transition of like, well, I set it up for you. Why don't I like stab myself in the neck and you can finish it from here, you know? That was my takeaway. And not that I minded, because it just, at least with this movie, at least we were following someone. At least we got to have empathy for some character and see their journey. Whereas like I just did not feel that with anyone in the last two movies. So when it comes to any of the Laurie stuff, it really felt forced. You know, when you have Frank come in there and he's talking about cherry blossoms, and this becomes some metaphor, which, oh my God, like I wish that they would just have cut that out, because it's the worst. It felt so written, of just like, oh, cherry blossoms, that's gonna represent like happiness or whatever. Like, that's not how you fucking write a movie. And it took 4 screenwriters to write that shit.
That definitely stood out to me during the opening credits. That was one thing where I was just like, uh-oh. And I had a lot of kind of like I don't even know if they're record scratch moments, maybe record skip moments where you're just kind of like, well, okay, it's playing. The music is playing. I'm good. Yeah. And but I mean, but I spent, I'd say, arguably maybe the first half hour actually just kind of in almost a seventh heaven because, like I said, like catching up with the characters who survived, it was so gratifying to me. And even though we have only just been introduced to Corey, like seeing him and his relationship with Ronald, like at the junkyard and everything. I remember I couldn't hear him call him Ronald, because I was focusing on something else. And I remember at some point during the movie, my mom asked me like, oh, she made a comment. She's like, oh, his dad. And I'm like, oh, I thought it was his stepdad. Like, I got major stepdad vibes from him. Like, I'm not the one who birthed you, and I'm not the one who like raised you from the time you were, you know, a little baby. But I am the one who kind of like keeps the peace in the house now. I'm the one who tries to keep your mother happy and keep you happy. I know you need your freedom, but I also know she needs to be, she needs to be.
Yeah, as far as I know, it's the uncle,
but not dealt with.
It's Uncle Ronnie.
Is it? Well, is it Uncle?
Yeah, because I was trying to figure that out as well.
Well, because the other reason I'll jump ahead for one moment because it's not a big moment, but just like the fact that he was sitting there after the slap and the crying and all that with the mom, but then she because she wants him to leave and everything, and he will. So he just kind of stands there and looks at Ronald, and Ronald says something. What it says? Something
I think he says like, "I hope you find love."
I hope you find love.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, I hope you find love. And for me, what I got from that, the subtext, you know me with my headcanon.
Yeah.
The subtext I got from that moment was, because I sure haven't. I found a predicament, and I know how to get by in it. But I really hope you find love, because it'll make your life so much better. I thought that's what I got from it, because I thought that's the new husband caretaker vibe thing that I got from him. Yeah. But
I'm trying to find like an official thing that says like who this character is, because I like the things that I read.
That should be the cherry picker this week. Who is Ronald? Is he an uncle or is he a stepdad? Find out what people think. But also, okay, then we got we started getting like the really kind of toxic people. Like we got Doug Mulaney coming in, like leaning in too close to Allison and lingering in a way that I know she's not, into, and he's just not taking the hint. We get to Margot and Terry and whoever the other fucking
the marching band bullies.
The marching band bullies, who isn't Corey like 24 years old now at this point?
Yeah. Like, that's the thing. Like,
he's taller than all of them.
I couldn't make out like what is this group, because I just saw like sort of like the marching band like the uniform. Yeah. But it's just like it's such a motley crew of just like they just threw like every sort of like stereotype in there, like the jock and the mullet guy and like the big hair girl, and I'm just like so they're all in a marching band. And I'm just thinking like I don't know anyone who's been in a marching band, but I just like the fact that they're like, how are we gonna make these bullies like stand out from other bullies? And they're like, let's make them marching band members. Like, who the fuck
and maybe
are these
that
kids?
Was an attempt. I know maybe that was an attempt to subvert expectations again. Like they're the least likely people
I was just thinking
you would
like
expect to be bullies.
Yeah,
but
I was just thinking like, is this Gen Z? Is this what Gen Z is like portrayed as now?
I've seen it more effectively handled in like Spider-Man Homecoming and everything like that. Yeah. But no, because there was something about but I mean, also that was when I started like getting these like toxic people and kind of like this town in like kind of like disrepair, like like the winter of its time. And I started really getting like Derry from It vibes. And I'm sure I hadn't seen the trailer yet, and they introduced like that pipe shot and the fact that like there's something mysterious in the pipe and there's Corey looking in it and everything like that. I've seen the trailers after the movie now. So I wonder, I'm probably not even the 12th person to make I'm probably not even the 12th person to make this comparison. But and then we were under the bridge, like after he gets, he didn't get thrown yet, but he's like riding. And we follow like the homeless guy under the bridge, and we're just like kind of like in the pipe and then from the pipe looking, and I'm like, this is so Pennywise. This is so It. What are they doing? What are they trying to say? Is Michael Myers like an idea now. Is he did he cross over into like the Dream Demon territory, and he's got like Freddy back there, and Freddy's like, yeah, go back to Haddonfield, you'll roll the place.
It's actually Pennywise. That's what this is.
Pennywise. So yeah, so I mean, between like kind of like the Stephen King-esque villains and and the general kind of like hillside sewer drain pipe aesthetic, like I was getting like, okay, where are we going here? And then I got like drawn right back in though, because I got to see Allison. Well, I got to see Laurie interact with Corey, and that was fun. But then seeing Allison be drawn to Corey, and I liked the dynamic that they had. The fact that they seemed like all of a sudden, like the fact that the doctor was kind of a bully, it seemed to fit, because it just kind of like created this motif of these two characters who are just kind of like spat upon by the people. They're like subservient to people who they shouldn't be. I know how strong Allison can be. I suspect Corey is so much stronger than he's been allowed to be up until now. Like, I'm already like forming perspectives on both of these characters and where they're at in their lives right now. And the fact that Allison is into him, number one, I liked it because she was so direct. Finally, like, it seemed like her grandmother's words were really kind of like getting through. And like somebody who is, burrowing out of their trauma, like that particular era of their life, it seemed like she was kind of like, not about the bullshit anymore. Let's just cut right through. I'm into you. And if you're into me, we can make this happen kind of energy. And I love seeing Allison that way. And it's particularly rooting for her, because she seems to have been kind of shut down up until now.
She reveals later on that she had actually, like, she knew about him for a while. She heard the story, so she was already drawn to him just based on, like, just hearing about his pain. And a huge criticism I've seen is just like this relationship in the movie, and just being like, oh, it's like a soap opera, like teen drama thing. I'm like, I disagree completely, because I felt like this, like, I liked their relationship together. I was rooting for them. I cared about them. Like they had so much empathy for, like, just in terms of like with the audience, and then for each other. That actually, like, this is my favorite outing for Allison as well. And you know how I felt about Allison, like 2018, I was just like, she was there for me. Like, she was just like, we have to, that was just a way, it felt like that was a way to appease younger generations. Cause you have Laurie, who's the grandmother at this point. You have to have like a young, tough chick, because I shouldn't say chick, but like, someone like younger, because Judy Greer is also, she's not,
she's repressed.
Exactly. So they had to have some sort of like entry point for younger audiences to identify with the character. And I felt like that's what Allison's role was in 2018, that it was almost just like she was there. Like, that was her only purpose. That's what I got out of her in that movie. With Kills, I felt like, she did a lot more. She, we talked about this. She, rose to the occasion. There were still a lot of issues that I had with just more so character decisions. But, at this point, like, I actually felt like this was the most agency she had in the movie. It was the most connected to her that I felt. Like, that's another thing. Like, there are so many fewer characters in this movie as compared to the last two, that it felt so much more focused on who the people were that we were following, that I actually got a sense of who they were and what their story was. Whereas before, she was just sort of like part of a series of vignettes that connected the, like, one scene to whatever the next set piece was, or whatever, and then kind of circling back to her at the end. So here I felt like, this is the first time I really got to see Allison and know her as a person, and I understood every decision. Like, nothing seemed weird to me. I mean, it was funny that it was just like, they just met 2 days ago, and this is like, they're already so like engrossed in this relationship. Like, it did feel very silly in that regard, but it's still like, I understood it. It's just like, it didn't need to make sense, because this was, like, just of where they both were in their lives. They're just like, here's someone who just kind of sees him as a person or whatever she says. Like, I didn't see any of that stuff that they labeled you as. Like, I just saw you for who you were.
Right. I think I've always liked her better in 2018 than you have, just because I don't know. I love a good passive character who's absorbing the environment around them, and we already covered this in the 2018 discussion. But just I just love watching her kind of like observe what's going on within the framework of her family and kind of like ultimately have to make decisions about, well, who do I want to be and who am I going to, what kind of what am I going to prioritize as an adult as I'm moving into adulthood? And I like that. And of course, I love just watching everything from the first movie and everything that she goes through and kills reverberate within her. She is one of my favorite things about the second movie. But this time, also just the fact that like after that experience, like meeting him and everything, the fact that she gets to like come back and have like, time with Lindsay and with Laurie in the house. And that's when Laurie does like, show your tits or whatever. I don't remember what she said, but you said it. And and also Lindsay's there with like the tarot cards and everything. And I was just kind of like, oh my God, I'm so vibing with this. Like, this is a house I want to be in. And these are people who I want to see interact and be comfortable with each other and find some kind of like peace after the war and before like the one that I thought was, like on the horizon. And actually, I was really charmed by Frank and Laurie in the grocery store. Because again, like it seemed like an open door. It was a seed that was planted. I mean, it wasn't really planted in the 2018 movie. We just knew there was familiarity there. Yeah. But then it was, like expanded upon a little bit. Like we didn't know exactly what was going on. But, we know that they obviously fancied each other, once, and who knows how far that went. But
she was doing the thing, also, that she did in the first movie, the twirling of the hair. Because she's really, Laurie, like psychologically is still a teenage girl. Like all the trauma has,
you're always a beginner when you start over again in love anyway too. I think you always feel like a kid at the beginning, and there's something wrong.
I mean, I'm glad that you enjoyed that scene because that was actually my least favorite scene. And it's not that I have anything against Frank, but because again, it was just like what I liked the part where she was like, oh yeah, like I'm working on my memoir, like you told me I should, and also Allison's doing good. She started talking to a boy, you might know him, Corey, and then Frank like vouches for him. He's just like, oh yeah, I know Corey, like good kid, like he had a rough go. I like that because that pertains to what the narrative of the story is. What I don't like is Frank being like, oh yeah, I started taking guitar lessons and my niece bought me this like Japanese thing and something about cherry blossom. I couldn't even. He's such a mumbler. Like he's just I never can pick up like what he's saying most of the time. Speaking of mumblers, there was also the meat department guy who he reminded me. He was like this movie's version of the bartender in Kills.
From Kills.
Yeah. Did you not get that vibe? It's just like, I'm gonna go back to the get that for you.
No. I even watched the second time I watched it with subtitles. I still couldn't understand a fucking word he said. Because I think I was listening to her, and I had earbuds in that time. Yeah. Like I was just like, sure, I want to get this, but good catch. Yeah. But no, I absolutely adored the cherry blossom thing. But you brought it up, just like the whole him calling Corey a good kid. I was just kind of like, yes, see, these are the people I want to spend my movie with. The ones who see what I see, the ones who perceive what I believe. But
even if they don't perceive it, at least just as long as they have something to say about the movie, rather than just like talking about themselves, something that's irrelevant about themselves.
I don't care about that because I like I said, I love catching up with them and I love getting just all the little details. Yeah. I love because also that's the thing is like. There was something, for somebody who loves subjective cinema as much as I do, I was really still, at this point, in absolute awe of how seemingly kind of directionless we were, like in what I perceived to be a great way. Yeah. Like, I didn't know, this is what I thought. I didn't know where we were going. I was just enjoying the ride. But what I could feel starting to happen, that horror fan anticipatory, like, but I mean, I know what movie I'm in. The whole movie can't just be this. I thought what was being set up, because I cared so much about all the people they were reintroducing or introducing even for the first time, like Corey. And the people who were pushing up against them, I felt like, yeah, I'm supposed to feel animosity towards you. So you're all going to die, but I thought what they were setting up were these kind of like alliances, these connections between people I really, really care about, so that if any of those characters die, it's gonna just gut me. It's gonna cut my heart out, and that's what I was anticipating would happen. And I was even like bracing myself, going, "Oh no, they're gonna kill someone I care about. I just know it." And that didn't really happen.
So did you? Just be clear. Did you want someone of that group to die?
I didn't want someone to die in the sense it's like, yeah, die. But I mean,
Yeah.
it was setting up a movie that I was like, oh my God, this would be great.
Yeah.
Like that's a ride. Like, cause I'll be invested. If I have to watch every one of these people who I care about, who I've talked about thus far, who I care about, fight Michael and maybe make it, maybe not make it, I am going to be so much more.
Well, I feel that
involved.
if there was one character that you're gonna feel bad for, that's Corey. And I feel that by the time he exits the movie, it was done so like nonchalantly that just like now there's bigger issues to deal with. That it was almost like the studio being like, okay, but we have to deal with this. So tidy up this 90-minute like opener that we let you have, so we can deal with like what everyone's come to the movie to see. But I mean, because I didn't. That's the thing. It's just like when you have a character, like, because this type of movie, like you said, is the Stephen King kind of template of because we're supposed to feel so empathetic towards this person that everyone else automatically needs to be scum and just viewed as a horrible person, because that's the only way that we can see them. Because if we see them for being like anything better than that, then we're gonna hate Corey. And I just going back to the scene that we were talking about, because I think the most interesting part of that scene happens after Laurie leaves the store, where she's then starts getting yelled at by this woman who
victim
we find
blamed
out is the sister of Sandra, who's still alive.
Right.
That was probably the one thing in the movie that surprised me, and just of the actual movie, that I did not see coming.
Okay, I was too upset to be surprised in that particular moment. And I think I was supposed to be, like, obviously, like, I'm not supposed to be like, yeah, tell her. Or be like, Laurie, hit her. It was just a really unfortunate, terrible moment, the way it would be in real life, because I care about Laurie and I don't want to see her. And I especially don't want to see her. You talk about, like, you tempted that man and then he went. It's like, no. That is not what happened at all. You've got absolutely the wrong idea, but you feel bold enough to, like, get in her face and talk like you know what went down that night. You have no fucking clue. And I kind of was waiting for somebody to tell that woman, or to tell anybody who was, like, kind of looking down their nose at Laurie that way, or even looking down their nose at Corey that way.
Well, okay, here's my takeaway from that is that, okay, first of all, the citizens of Haddonfield are the most inconsistent people in any sort of fictional movie town existence. And I don't know if that's intentional and just like sort of a commentary on society today and how, people are, more so just sheep and led by whatever they're being told. Because in 2018, we see a Haddonfield that does not give a shit. Like, they're very much like just blasé to anything that happened before. It's just like Michael Myers, like, who cares? Like that was so like 40 years ago. We like get with the now, and looking at Laurie like just some crazy lady who's stuck in the past. And then we go to kills, and then all of a sudden there's all these people just like the trauma that we've been dealing with for the last 40 years. And just ready to jump on that mob mentality. And now we come into ends, and all these people are all about victim shaming. So it's like, pick a lane. Like, who are you?
But even within this movie, this is when what I just call my movie confusion started. Really, like there were some record skip moments, but now I started to kind of go, wait. So you're saying, because just a couple scenes later, like, because we go into the night scene, the date between Allison being with Corey and everything like that. Love Lindsay being totally supportive of Allison's choices too at the bar. Like that was awesome. But I started to get confused afterwards when like Corey lost it, and we have the infamous moment that has been memed now by Jeremy's mom. You know, going full like cat meme, Real Housewives cat meme
with Kyle Richards,
Corey.
Yeah.
Yes, and anyway, the chat. I was still with the movie at this point because I mean, of course, I love watching the two of them just have fun, and then I hate seeing him get chewed out, and then have to like leave, and then Allison's trying to trail after him and everything like that, and that's when he starts to go after her about like because she's like we both been seeing we both know what it's like to come through, and I'm like yes, everything that you've laid this out. I even knew just the way she was looking at him. You like him because he understands what it is to have to go through some fucking shit and have to examine your shit and have to wonder what was my part in this? Like, what is everybody thinking my part is in this? I mean, there's nothing she's ever going to have to really explain to him. Everything he is going to understand intuitively because it resonates with what he's gone through. And that all made perfect sense to me. And I loved it that's where she was coming from in that side of the argument. When he says, but we're different, they look at me and they see a monster. They look at you and they see a survivor. I'm like, but Laurie survived too. Why isn't she seen? Is he right? And does everybody just hate Laurie? Is it ageism? Well, they just hate the old lady, but they like the young, pretty ingenue because she's a survivor, and that's what we're conditioned to do. I didn't understand. Wait, what is that? What is the movie trying to say?
I mean,
was anybody right?
This is where
it was
things
so
are.
Inconsistent.
This is where things are very inconsistent with their themes, because I feel like they're very ham-fisted with everything in a way, but at the same time they are inconsistent because I would think that Laurie and Corey are more similar than anyone else because, as displayed by the scene with Sandra's sister, is that, Laurie is still being cast aside as this town pariah. And, she's being blamed for all this stuff, just like Corey is. That to me, it's so jarring that Laurie has that sudden shift where she all of a sudden sees the evil in Corey or whatever. And I don't want to discuss this now because I feel like there's still so much to talk about before we get to that. Yeah. But and crazy enough, we're still 40 minutes into this movie before Michael Myers shows up. But because there is so much to discuss here, but it's almost like
there is
when we see the scenes of Laurie when she comes and gives the knife to Corey to slash the tires and drives him to the clinic, all that, I love, because it's just here are two characters who at least Laurie recognizes what he's gone through and what the town has done to him, just like they've done to her, and all of that is sort of just forgotten about. It's just swept aside. There's still a through line with Allison for that, but it's just what is Laurie? Laurie is the biggest question mark for me in this movie. And also I wanted to say, following the scene with Sandra's sister, because she goes in her car and cries, and that's fine. I like seeing that, but what they absolutely should have cut was Frank coming up to the window, because again, he says all he says is cherry blossoms, and I'm just fuck you, four writers. What is this bullshit? She should have been allowed to have that moment in private and not be interrupted by him. We already saw him in the store. It that felt unnecessary. But yeah, with the scene of after the bar and even in the bar and that fucking terrible redheaded girl with Deb.
Nurse Deb.
Oh gosh, she sucks. But there was a funny moment with her later on where Allison just God, would you just shut the hell up for do you hear yourself? And she has this look for a moment oh wow, I've really hit a nerve, and then she's like, I know. Sometimes I talk too much.
Self-consciousness or self-awareness is admirable in an annoying, obnoxious person.
Yeah, but yeah, the whole thing with I mean, it was frustrating because it was one of those scenes with Allison and Corey, when they're having that fight outside of the bar, and it's just go after him, just follow him, and like, because that's the thing. Like a character like Corey, you just need to like be there for, like, he just needs reassurances, because obviously, like, you know, he's having a good time at the party. He's having a seizure, it looks like, on the dance floor.
I thought
That's
it was
what
gonna,
I thought that was.
I thought it was going to turn bad because he was
Yeah.
laying on the floor and he was going to seize up or something, or
Yeah.
have like, I don't know, a nom flashback or something, and he didn't.
Yeah,
it
but I just
happened because
feel
he
like
left
it's
and,
like he's dealt with so much shit of just like people, I get like turning on him, that, you know, obviously he has like his walls up, and, you know, is not trusting of people, and doesn't feel that, like, you know, like Allison will see what she really likes and all that. So just like, you know, we're letting this character go off on his own to basically become what he's going to become. And that, I mean, that's necessary for the story, but that was like, that's where it really like connected with me emotionally, because it's just like, if people were just, you know, and you hear this like in the news all the time, like if people were just more, you know, open to discussions and you know, talking about them, like all this shit could have been prevented. And I feel like with Corey, that's so true with the character, because, you know, and I do want to jump ahead to a scene later on with Laurie, when he's, after he's been kicked out of the house and he's sleeping on the floor of the abandoned Jeremy house, and she's there, and someone actually mentioned they weren't sure if this was real or like Jeremy's hallucination of Laurie being there. I just think that was actually her there, because she was following them around. But she says to him, like, because she says the whole thing, it's just like, there's two kinds of evils. There's like the kind that exists, that like, that is harmful to the tribe, external, that's harmful to the tribe, and then there's the evil that exists within us, like a sickness or an infection, basically implying that that's what Corey has. And she says, I want to help you. And then immediately she says, but you need to stay away from Allison. And it's just like, do you want to help him, or are you trying to like trigger him right now? Because nothing she does in that scene is helpful to him at all. And she basically just gives him permission to be evil, because it's just like, you know what? Like this is, I'm going to help you, but you can't do this. You can't do these things that are
Here's
good
the label
for you.
that I've put on you. Exactly. Like this is not persuasive discussion. But see, what I love, sorry, you can finish your point and then I'll make mine.
No, go ahead.
Because there was something in the exchange between Allison and Corey on the street, the way it ended, that was contradictory to that whole theme of like, you know, opening the door like for people, because that is all Allison is doing at that moment. She is just trying to open a door, and he's the one closing it. But what I love about it is, as an audience member who cares about both of these people, I'm listening to them, and it's like I'm watching two friends fight, and I'm listening to her speak from the heart and just be completely candid about like everything that's motivating her to, you know, like open her arms to him, and she full on like holds her hands up to him when she just can't say anymore. Love the performance that she was giving. And then for Corey to say things like, you can't fix me, and stuff like that, I'm full on talking to the screen at this point, going like, she never said she wanted to fix you, you know, like I am in the soap opera. I am you know, I am like, and then when he walks away, I'm just like, oh, just let him walk away, darling, just let him. He's not ready yet. You're trying to open the door, and he will walk through, and he does later, but he's not ready yet. You have to, sometimes you just, when people walk away, you just kind of got to let them go. And I just love watching her stand there with her hands while he walks away, and just watching her wrestle with it, because all she wants to do is feel anything other than the trauma. And that's when we go, because I thought about, this is the moment where we come across the madcap group of of marching band fuckers, and I'm just watching them, and I'm just kind of like, is this I Know What You Did Last Summer now? Like, we're jumping from one movie to the next just because like this big group, you know, like pushing him over the thing, and just like, he fell, nobody saw anything, fuck you, I'm a hothead. And okay, this is a good time to bring it up, because the character of Terry, where the fuck is Haddonfield? Illinois, right? Why is he all from Brooklyn sitting there like, no, you don't do this? Oh, what did you say, college boy? I mean, he may as well be saying lines like that, like, hey, Shakespeare, like whatever, getting in Corey's face. Like, look at Albert Einstein, a real genius. Oh, look at your glasses. Look, we're going to step on your prescriptions. How do you like that, Mr. Baby Killer? I keep expecting it is that level of cartoon Bronxishness. And then Corey goes home. Corey has no accent. Nobody else in the group has an accent either. But they all got character voices. Yeah, what are you doing over there, Mr. Me? Like whatever. Yeah. But then Corey goes home and he talks to his mother. And there she is talking like that. What are you doing, my dear? You're my boy. I want you to feel like, what? Don't you talk to me that way. I don't want you going there. And she's almost like a Brooklynese Mrs. Bates. I don't want you going around with dirty girls. Like it's just, where the fuck are we?
She was giving me like a young Lin Shaye vibe. What? Boys who keep secrets don't get custard for dessert. God. She was awful. Jesus. And every time she was on the screen, I was just like, who is this person? Why is she in this movie?
And also, like, where the fuck are we? Like, did people from the East Coast, like, immigrate? And also the fact that anybody who has an even remotely kind of, like, East Coast New Yorkish accent is really a horrible person. Like, what are we saying? Like, but all the nice Midwestern, like, Haddonfieldites are just, they talk like you and me. They talk basic English. Anyway, I didn't know what to make of that. But, okay. Then the confusion really started setting in because Corey, like he fell and everything like that. And then he gets dragged into that pipe. And I'm stunned because I see Michael Myers and I see him look into Corey's eyes. Mm-hmm. And immediately I hear the screenwriter from Friday the 13th, the final chapter, saying, the horror transferred from Michael Myers into Corey Cunningham. And again, here we are in the East Coast, everybody. The horror can be, and again, here we are in Halloween 4 with like little Danielle Harris absorbing the horror from Michael Myers, and I'm just kind of like, okay, is that what happened, or did he? Because there was a weird kind of recognition, almost like Michael Myers could see into his past and see like, does he have a weird kinship with other young men who've murdered in a residential home on Halloween night in Haddonfield, like, or was the horror past?
Okay,
like, I didn't understand what was going on.
I mean, first of all, Michael drags Corey into the sewer and then just leaves him there. Like, doesn't kill him or anything.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, that's first of all, that's very uncharacteristic of Michael. Because, he's not Jason from Friday the 13th, 2009, keeping hostages in his underground lair. I mean, I think that, like, if Michael was to walk by an unconscious person on the ground, he might stop and look at them, but he would keep walking. It's like the same thing with the baby in 2018. Like, he's not going to kill the baby because it's just like, here's a defenseless. I mean, at this point, this person can't even experience death. If I killed them, then what's the point? So why is he dragging him in? So clearly, the screenwriters were just like, well, there's some sort of connection. But the thing that's just the most jarring is like Michael is the absence of a character. He's the absence of a conscience. There's no way that Michael would look into Corey's eyes and see anything other than a victim for him to kill. Even if there was some sort of darkness in there, like he would not see that. So, I mean, that's the thing.
Unless Corey said, Uncle Boogeyman. Yeah. You're like me.
Yeah. I mean, it felt so like forced and just like also the inconsistency of this timeline of David Gordon Green being like, well, it's not supernatural. Michael is just a man. But then it's just like, no, it's supernatural. It's just like the whole thing of just like wrestling back and forth of like, well, what is it? So, and immediately after he I mean, well, not immediately after, but like later on, that's when like Laurie first sees him, and she's she can't say anything. She's speechless, she's breathless. She sees Michael in Corey's eyes for the first time that she's never seen before that. So clearly, whatever happened in that exchange changed him.
Right.
Like he's not the same person at this point. Yeah. But and she can see it. And I don't doubt that she can't see it, because this is Laurie Strode. She sees things that other people don't. But it's still like, what is the movie trying to tell me? That like, has this always existed in him, like she says, or was it transferred to it? Like, it's just it doesn't make any sense, because with Michael, that was just my interpretation of Michael is like either he was just born like that, or just one day it took him over and he's just like, okay, now I'm the shape or whatever. And that's what's like mystifying about it, because it's just like we don't know. With Corey, we've been set up to understand this character, that all of a sudden now we're going to say like he's been taken over by this supernatural force.
Which, okay, then I started to wonder, because what follows, even before the Laurie recognition moment, I'm still stuck on this drainpipe exchange. You know what I'm going to talk about.
Yes.
Because the first time I saw it, I thought, did I just mishear that? And when the second time I watched it with the subtitles, I saw the line spoken when Corey first escapes the pipe and the homeless man is there. And he's saying a bunch of stuff and rattles off somewhere in there, grabs him and says, "I'm Michael Myers." I thought I misheard it. I didn't mishear it. So the second time I'm watching it, I'm just kind of like, so wait, what were you trying to do there? Because what I thought they were trying to do the first time I saw it, when I didn't know where we were going, what I thought was, is that old homeless man like the Michael Myers who was like born in Haddonfield, raised until he was what age was he when he first killed his sister? 6. Yeah. So like aged from like 0 to 6, got taken over by some evil spirit in a very kind of like Thorn cult kind of way, and then kind of like carried that like a sickness, like a disease, for all of these years. And then finally, when he got killed, or not killed, but like kind of like beaten, you know, to a point of weakness within an inch of his life after kills, did a weird kind of like metamorphosis happen, or not even a division, you know, happen, where like the man Michael Myers separated from the spirit, and the spirit is like living Pennywise style in the sewers, while the homeless man, he doesn't know what to do, so he's just hanging around Haddonfield picking through trash cans, just trying to like, you know, survive. So I thought that's why he screamed, "I'm Michael Myers" to Corey. Yeah, and that's why it was blowing my mind. I was like, "What the fuck is this movie?"
Or not even that, but that was Michael, and then like whatever the essence was of him was in that sewer, and what Corey saw, what like grabbed him, wasn't even like a corporeal entity. It was just like, it was just sort of like the spirit of Michael that went into him, or
exactly,
like
or the whatever.
I mean, all of that is
of like.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting, but it's all a moot point, since like Michael does kind of come back at the end there. But
first time going through it, I didn't know that, so I just kind of thought like, and also I didn't know how I felt about that even as a direction to go, and I was just kind of like, if that's what they're doing, I don't know if I like it.
Well, even then, you know? That whole exchange with the homeless man is confusing to me, because he found Corey's switchblade. He pulled it on him, and he's just like, you know, you go in that sewer and you get me that mask. So he's basically threatening him. So, you know, when he died, I saw that self-defense, because the guy was like literally going to try to kill Corey. That, you know, after Corey turned the knife around and killed him instead, and he's just like panicking and freaking out. I'm still seeing that's not darkness taking over Corey. That's someone acting in self-defense to save his own life, and he's confused. He's panicking. He's not standing over the homeless man like tilting his head and marveling at, you know, his
which would
art.
Have been interesting. Yeah.
So I just like, at that point I wondered like, why are you? I mean, I can understand why he wouldn't go and report that to the police, because of everything that's happened to him. That he would be more inclined to hide the body. Like that makes sense, but it's still like I don't see. I'm so confused about what Laurie sees and when this darkness has taken over him, because at that point, other than him just like coming over to the Strode house and standing behind the bush just staring at nothing, like there's nothing that really, like, that's just like, where's this odd behavior coming from all of a sudden? And I do want to say though, I liked the scene. It was very very Tenebrae for me when Laurie goes outside and he's not there, but then he's sort of like he's standing behind her and just peeks out.
Yes, yeah, that was pretty cool.
That was really well done.
And I was still on board. I was like, if we're doing like a weird kind of like possessed by the spirit of Michael Myers, maybe I'm really gonna like. I'm literally thinking in real time while I'm watching the movie. I'm like, maybe I'm really gonna like the resolution, because maybe Halloween's gonna end because maybe the Michael Myers spirit isn't gonna be successful in taking over Corey. Maybe I'm gonna get to watch him have an inner struggle. Again, I don't know that I like it, but maybe I will. You know, and I'm just trying to guess where they're gonna take me.
Yeah, the thing that's hilarious to me is that like this whole storyline is receiving so much criticism, yet this was the cliffhanger for Halloween 4, which everyone I mean, I've talked about that with you.
Well, a lot of people
off the pod.
Yeah.
I mean, Halloween 4 I think is a middling entry as it is. I'm sorry, but that cliffhanger, I feel like that was just sensationalism. Like it was just like whatever, it didn't do anything. That's why they couldn't successfully continue that as a storyline in 5. But it's just like everyone was on board for that. Like even Danielle Harris was like, oh, what's going to happen? Am I going to come back and be like sort of a sidekick in 5? And I'm sure people were like, oh, that would have been so awesome. And now here we have this movie that is exactly that. And people are like, this is awful. What are we watching here?
But is it exactly that? We'll get there. And I'll share all my Halloween 4 and 5 opinions when we get to those movies. But this, okay. But the fact that, like, Laurie sees, or rather, I love that in Jamie Lee's performance, like, I get a sense she actually even more feels the horror. Yeah. Like, she just kind of gets a chill up her spine, like, you know, wait, I felt this way before. This isn't right. And everything about her feels intuitive. Like, just she doesn't really shift. Like, even if she kind of, like, smiles for, like, a second just to kind of, like, oh, that's funny. You know, like, whatever. I don't even remember if she does. But even if she does, her default face is, like, one
well, no, because it's
caution.
Because she hasn't said anything, and he's like, I got jumped by those marching band kids or whatever.
She's like, oh, I'm sorry.
She's like,
that's terrible.
Yeah.
But and then okay, so then we get like Allison and everything, and again, like the confusion sets in for me again, because I love that he, again, in the performance, the earnestness, the fact that he's begging for just an opportunity to talk to her, and the fact that she seems so kind of like torn, and that I thought what was happening the first time I saw him when she walked past him, because there was no kind of like okay, or no kind of like pause, like I walk past you, now I pause and I look back at you like, come on, or anything like that. She just walks away. So I'm like, oh shit. He's too late. Now he's gonna turn bad. Oh wait, no, they're walking together. What the fuck just happened? So I mean, cinematically, I'm starting to lose kind of like,
I'm sorry,
what people's intentions are and what's
talking about?
The scene where he's like at the porch, right? The same scene. The scene where he's with Laurie. Yeah. Allison comes out on the porch. He stands there and basically at her feet, like is like begging for her to talk to him.
Yeah.
She's standing there like begrudgingly so. She walks past him and starts to leave. She doesn't say, okay, let's go. But then in the next frame, the next frame we see them walking together. So I'm like, oh, so she does want to talk to him? But,
I mean, I think that like language? You have to pick up on nonverbal cues here. You know, she started walking.
There were no cues. There was no cue.
She walked. Like she started walking
away. She again.
Then if she would have gone back into the house if she was, you know. If it was
I disagree. Anyway, you and I are not going to see eye to eye about that. But something that was
that's not even something I think about because I just knew that it like instinctually.
No. But I mean, just like again, like the hands, it seemed so incredibly clear, and then all of a sudden her walking away, I'm like, okay, now I'm just confused. I don't know. Okay, so they're walking together. Okay, cool. So good. That's what I wanted to happen. All right, here we are. And then he says, "I killed someone," and that's all he says. And they take hands. And then they like kind of walk away, and then they don't talk about that because I'm like, okay, wait. So when he said I killed someone, like I think he's talking about the homeless guy. Mm-hmm. She doesn't seem to like think he's talking about something new. Does she think he's talking about Jeremy, and like that's why I'm so fucked up. I killed someone.
That's what I got from it. You know, it was almost like, is he confessing to the new murder? And it's like, no, it's just sort of like a recognition of just like, I killed that kid. And then that's why it segues to
he literally just killed somebody.
I know, but
so
that was sort of the setup. It's just like, is he confessing to what he's just done, or is he, you know, keeping her, you know, like in the dark about these things? Because that's what we already saw with Corey. It's just like, he's not, like, she's opening the door for him, but he's not completely opening the door for her. So that's why,
yeah, but I don't like it.
Well, that's what it is, you know. And it was almost like a bait and switch of just like, I killed someone, and it's just like, oh wow, is he already, you know, ready to confess or whatever? So,
but see, this is the thing: is like that kill, like you mentioned earlier about like the homeless man and everything. I feel like it kind of gets disposed of and then kind of forgotten about. And he starts this body count that he's like keeping a secret of, and I don't know. It really started to kind of like lose me at this point, like because then. All of a sudden, when they're talking in that diner or whatever, and I felt like they were really starting to set up Allison in Haddonfield being something bad for her. And again, like there's a way to do this that I think I could be on board with, but because the movie I was presented with had her with Laurie and with freaking Lindsay, and I really loved the fact that they all seemed to be surviving together, like living their post-survivor life. Like that was great. And it's not solved, like they're not like happily ever after or anything, but they have each other. There's a unit. They can, and they didn't, all of a sudden they're just playing on the fact that like, no, Allison's alone too. And I'm like, well, is she alone or does she have a support group? Because nothing pisses me off more than in any of these movies, particularly sequels, where you bring a character back, all they have is support. This is what I hated about Scout Taylor Compton's fucking Laurie in Halloween 2. All they have are open doors and opportunities to kind of like be heard and lean on people and get help. And if they push it away, that's fine. People do it. But if they spend the bulk of the movie pushing away the people who care about them the most and treating them like garbage, I can't watch it. And that's what I started to get from Allison, because also even just the fact that like her staying with her grandmother, it seemed to be presented all of a sudden as something like detrimental to her progress in life or to like a stagnancy that she was experiencing. And I didn't see it that way at all. And it didn't feel like it was set up that way. So it started to get really sloppy. Again, inconsistency for me. I was like, what? So wait, what is she really unhappy with? Is it Haddonfield? Because then she starts getting unhappy with Laurie, and I'm like, what is this? What's happening? What are you trying to tell me? And I kept that question mark over my head. I don't think left for the bulk of the rest of the movie.
I mean, you're looking at this in a different way than I am, because I don't see Allison as someone who is needing help from this support system of Laurie or Lindsay or anything like that. I think it's the other way around, and it's basically said that as much of Allison saying that she's taking care of her grandmother and she doesn't want to leave because she's afraid of what that's going to do to Laurie because of all the progress that she's made. So I don't think that, you know, I think whatever it is with Allison is that just that nobody has an open door for her, because Allison is putting on this pretense of that she's fine. She's doing all right. And that's where Corey comes in, because that's the one person that she thinks that she can relate to the most, and that he's the one that, you know, will understand her the most. I don't think that at any point Laurie is like looking at Allison and just being like, oh my gosh, you're in trouble, girl. Or, you know, like she might just be like, oh yeah, you need to, like, you know, pull your tits out or whatever she says. But Allison is capable enough that, you know, she's not struggling. She's not a Scout Taylor Compton Halloween 2 character.
No, but
I think that she's self-sufficient. She's self-sufficient on her own to make her own decisions, and this is just the particular path she's going down. I don't think that there's anything that Laurie can do. If anything, Laurie is detrimental to her, because Laurie needs to deal with her own shit.
But comparing that with what was set up, like here I brought up like the wedding rings being presented, That's a gift only Laurie can give to Allison. And that even opened a door in Allison when she was weeping because, she received this remembrance of her parents and everything like that. I love seeing that nurtured in Allison. I love the fact that Allison, who is set up in the movie as being somebody who doesn't want to socialize and doesn't want to go to a Halloween party and all of that, has a grandmother and also has like a really supportive friend with Lindsay. These women are completely supportive of her in her pursuits. Date who you want, get your tits out, do all of it. Like those are all signals that tell me they are all about her seeking her own kind of progress.
Well, to a point, because then Laurie completely turns on a dime with that. But there's a difference between being supportive and being like afraid of someone. Because I mean, like you're talking about Halloween 2, like that girl in that movie was hanging by a thread. Like she could not have a breakfast without flying off the handle if someone said the wrong thing. And that is not who Allison is. That's another thing.
Lot of Halloween 2s.
We missed it on a breakfast scene in this movie. That was a tradition that I wanted to see.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Carried over.
That would have been nice.
Just the dysfunctional
but is there any
breakfast
scene in Season of the Witch? If there's no dysfunctional breakfast scene, is there? What? Where's the?
I mean, well, he drives off. I mean, he's on the phone with his
ex-wife
in the morning. He's got a 6-pack, and he's like, "Sorry, I can't come look after the kids. Right. I'm taking off with the, I don't know." That's the closest I can come to one. But I mean, there wasn't one in 1 or 2. There was just Halloween 4 with like Rachel and Jamie, and then 5. Was there one in 5? No, 6 was the another day at the Strode house.
Right.
H2O I don't know. I'm just trying to go through them mentally. H2O was
I know you are. Yeah. Rack them up.
H2O was
I want to respond
and
to what
Josh,
you said.
Talking about going to Yosemite, and then Halloween. Rob Zombie had 2. There was first the disgusting Myers house. Well, no, there's that, but the Myers house thing with the bagel. Yeah, and then later on with the bagel, the finger and the bagel. And then H2 was the one with, it's just like one day at a time. If I have to hear that phrase one more time.
Look at you. And I'm the Virgo. You're the one making lists. But okay, so.
I don't know. This isn't a list. This is committed to memory.
That's great. No, I mean, it's, anyway. Okay, semantics. So what I want to address I want to respond to what you said, because my criticism, I think we both criticize different things with the trajectory of Laurie, and even just the trajectory of like all of these characters that we're following, like Allison and Corey and Laurie and everybody. My criticism, this is where I start to take issue with the writing and with the way it's handled. Whereas it sounds like you're taking the writing at face value and criticizing the characters. I'm saying I don't feel like I'm agreeing with you.
Not at
Laurie
all.
Does turn up. No. I'm agreeing with you in the sense that Laurie turns on a dime. You said that. The problem is I feel like it isn't backed up by anything. It doesn't feel.
No, I agree. I agree with that. We're on the same page. I'm not denying.
Then why are we arguing?
I don't know.
Then why are we arguing?
Can we move on to the next?
Okay, because I feel you feel like this movie is consistent. I don't. I feel like there is a gross inconsistency.
I think it's consistent. No, I think it's consistent in terms of like the direction, the filmmaking, the story. That's where there's some issues, but I still think that it's more consistent than what we've seen in 2018 and Killed. Like with cinematically how David Gordon Green has presented and directed this movie. It's more consistent than what we've seen before. There's no scenes where we're like in the Myers house with like the new people living there and then locking the door because we're going to go after Myers. But now wait, let's jump back to the hospital and deal with whatever's going on there before we, finish up here. I felt like, like every transition made sense from scene to scene. Like it was linear. It was telling a story that like there wasn't any major lefts or right going. Like the script, that's another thing. But just in terms of like how it is shot and framed and all that, like that's consistent to me. That's the consistency.
I don't agree, because I feel like at this point, like I think the next moment we have after Corey has his confrontation with the ex-date, whatever, cop and everything, and then
Doug Mulaney.
I can't. Does he? I can't remember. Oh, he doesn't kill him yet. When they like get on the motorcycle and they're riding around, maybe that's I don't remember the sequence anymore. But just by the time they were riding on the motorcycle and there's like the synthetic score going on, or the song rather, and it started to feel very kind of like 1980s young rebel love story to me, and that was when I started to think, okay, I'm not liking this. Like, I'm not sitting here going, yeah, but I don't know if I dislike it. Like, we'll have to see where it goes. So at least there was that. And then when he sacrificed the cop and all of a sudden, and stabby tired Michael, I had no idea what was going on that scene either, because I heard Michael wheezing and I couldn't tell if while he was stabbing the cop in the sewer pipe, if he was dying, like, I'm too old for this, or if he was, it seemed to also at the same time simultaneously maybe be invigorating him.
Yeah,
again,
that's totally what it was, like restoring his health meter. That's why it was almost like, you need to bring me more. He was this movie's version of like Frank and Hellraiser, where just like, you bring me more people.
I didn't get that, but I was so unclear. I was like, what is happening? Because are you dying or are you getting even more full of life? Like, because it feels like a little bit of both. Like, it seems like it really could go either way.
That's the rhetoric that has been spouted off with like the last two movies of Laurie being like, when he kills, he transcends. Like, it's like every time he kills someone, it makes him more powerful. You know, like, that's basically just the story validating all of her dumb shit that she said for like the last couple of movies.
Well, I don't like that either, because I like the ambiguity of the legend having kind of two sides, but when I'm watching it actually happen and I don't know what's fucking going on, it's
insane. It's not consistent with like the character of Michael Myers, and especially the character that they so-called brought back because they wanted to do justice to the story, because all of the sequels messed it up, allegedly. So again, like, you know, that's why I think that like this doesn't work as a trilogy. That's 100% accurate. Like, if you're, it's funny because I put this on my my channel, just like in the community section, a poll of like, what is the best Halloween timeline? And this movie hadn't come out yet. This was like several days before. Yes. So I just put like a little question mark over the ends poster. But the first option was the 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, which I just called the Loomis timeline. The next one was the 1, 2 H2O Resurrection, which I call the Laurie timeline. Rob Zombie, which is just 1 and 2, and then the trauma timeline of 2018 kills and ends. And this timeline got most of, like, 69% of the votes. Yeah. And I'm just thinking, like,
it's not even finished.
What would that, no, but what if that was recalled? What would the vote be today? Because it's,
I wonder.
And that's like every timeline, like that, just it seems like the last chapter is sort of the worst movie in people's opinions.
Yeah.
And that's why
it always goes out with a fart.
Yeah. But the thing is, this was intentional. This was designed to be the last chapter. Whereas Resurrection was just, that was just another movie that they thought that they were going to keep going. And obviously with The Curse of Michael Myers, they thought they were going to go to. Personally, like, which one is your favorite timeline? I'm curious.
God, see, favorites, again, like, I don't even know what that fucking means, but let me think about it for a second. Okay.
Which one do you enjoy wholly more than the others?
I think I enjoy watching the 1, 2, 4, 5, 6 timeline most, because I think I watch those movies the most often. Because watching, I don't want to show my hand because future podcasts, but
it's fine. Just show your.
I mean, because the way the other ones like kind of like finish out, like at least Donald Pleasance is in, 6,
absolutely,
and there are 2 cuts, so I can always, straddle, and it's not 2 Rob Zombie cuts, so there's that.
I agree. I think that's that's the best timeline, because I like every single movie that's in that timeline. And 6 is not my least
And
favorite in that timeline too, mind you. So it's just it. Even whichever one I think is the worst is still a decent movie that I can watch that and be like, this is good, even though it doesn't really have a conclusion. I enjoy it. Like Resurrection is my least favorite. I can't abide by that being in any way like the last chapter of Laurie's story in that at all. And I mean,
No.
Rob Zombie, yeah, I'm not too keen on those movies. They're a little too nihilistic for me. But then, yeah, this one, it's not. It's just so it's all over the place. Like it's not a good trilogy. It's not
Well,
if this was just if 2018 was it, if that was the end and they killed him in that basement, that would have been fine. That would have been like that's a decent
Yeah.
that's a decent way to end it. But just because it's like,
Like-
no, we got to do more, and then
Yeah,
and
we
then
can-
go on from there. Even though I
we
like
can have this convert. Yeah.
even though I
Go on,
enjoy
go,
this
go.
movie hands more than 2018, I still think that as a timeline, I think 1 and 2018 is enough. Like they could have capped it there and it would have been fine. This is like
Yeah.
this to me, like I enjoy this because it's just so weird. It's just like it's it's like another revenge or curse of just we're gonna do some wild shit and no one's gonna like it, but it'll have its following.
Well, we can have this leg of the conversation now because I think I've basically shown my hand. Ultimately, coming to it the second time and watching it open again and watching the pumpkins birth the pumpkins in the opening credits and the way everybody's set up, I started to get a lot more of like what I really, really liked. And I started to realize, kind of like in a very Halloween Kills-esque way, it opens very strongly. There's a lot of enticement, and as the movie progresses, it slowly starts to like kind of eclipse itself with the problems that I don't enjoy, to the point where I get to the end of the movie and I am tired. And based on previous conversations we've had off pod, I like to go out with a bang. I don't like to feel like things are kind of settling and the movie just kind of goes, it's over.
Yeah.
There are exceptions to that rule, but for the most part, particularly if it's a saga, I don't like to. I feel like the installments have gotten weaker with each one. I've enjoyed watching this movie the least out of all of them, just because I was as excited as I was about the aesthetic of like the flashback in Kills and of like the promise of like where the story's going to go. It's the same night. Good. I like these characters. I like this night. And the fact that the kills are really, really graphic and everything like that. With this one, I think I might have been even more on board because of the emotional investment with these characters and just kind of like, how are they going to rebuild their lives? And then how are their lives going to be torn down? And I just didn't get the movie that was on the tin. Even the movie that was advertised that I did not see feels like a lie. Like I thought about it while I was watching it the first time.
The final showdown between Michael and Laurie, you mean?
Well, the fact that it's the movie, that's the movie they're pushing. The fact that like the poster is the two of them with their, back to back, like, oh, that Michael. And and the fact that like that is not the movie at all. And again, if that's an intended subversion of my expectations, fail. Because you basically made the same mistake Season of the Witch made by trying to give an audience something that they didn't want, but you advertised it as the thing the audience wants.
So I just want to be
movie.
I just want to be clear. Like the thing that is the most grating to you about this movie is it's not the fact that there's another killer or someone doing Michael's killing, or just the fact that it's not a consistent finish for what has been built up.
The fact that it could have been handled deftly. What they were setting up, I was just going to like, there were the makings of a great movie here. There's an opportunity to absolutely subvert my expectations and yet still give me the movie that I want. And I feel like they subverted them a little too much, and also set up, this we haven't talked about yet either. Set up things that I thought might pay off later, even like little things, seemingly insignificant things that I didn't get until the second time I watched it, with Jeremy's mom talking about the fact that he was scared of all that Michael Myers business and he's been wetting the bed and he's afraid of everything, and yet the kid that I'm watching seems to be one who is absolutely thirsty for this kind of thing. And whether he's just puffing up to try and like, put on some kind of airs for this babysitter and belittle him and everything like that, none of that ever pans out. Like there's nothing, I don't know what the fuck that's in there for. Like why are we setting up this world of like a post Michael Myers thing where like kids are still afraid if like then in the next, after the opening credits, you're going to find out, no, Haddonfield is in disrepair and people are killing them. So, I mean, that feels like something different than kind of like a legend that makes kids, the legend that makes kids afraid to go to sleep. The fact that the boogeyman is alive and well all feels very kind of like enticing to me. But the rundown town where, with the harsh realities of like suicides and murders and, people just kind of giving up and victim shaming and all of that I don't know, it just feels like a completely different movie. And I was still even on board for a while. But then, why was Lindsay in this movie? Like, she was set up to be a part of this unit, I felt, like a part of this support system. And then we never see her again. She is, like, drops out of the back half of the movie, and I'm just like, this is a really capable actress, and somebody who I was really hoping after Kills, we were really going to get more of her in the third one. Like, good, she survived. They're going to use her. They didn't do shit with her. Angry I am.
Yeah. I mean, okay, well, you've said a lot, so I have to catch up here. So just stop.
Go for it. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm just trying to remember. Well, first of all, just Lindsay. She was kind of, I feel like, she had a schedule. Kyle Richards did, and there was only so much that they could do. And I feel like, I remember hearing that they gave her more to do in this movie. So I don't think that her role was ever supposed to be substantial in a way, because she's not even in the last scene of all the town going to the junkyard in the procession. No. I like to reason to the fact that she works in the service industry, and on a Halloween night, there's no getting out of that shit. So like everyone else in the town, go to the junkyard. No, you're still on shift. You got to stay here and pour vodka sodas. But I worked in a nightclub as a bartender. There is no freedom. She was just like, I'm going.
She was there the night he killed her, her best friend or her love interest's babysitter in 1978. Yeah. So she should be there.
Her babysitter,
She didn't even get a send off in the end. Like, here we're finding out where Allison's going and where Laurie's going, and nobody cares about Lindsay. Like, Jesus. Put that.
And that's that kind of segues into another thing, because you were talking about the opening scene and how there's these ideas set up of just like the Jeremy being scared of things like that. I feel like I can explain that as just like none of that's important, because what the purpose of the opening scene is to set up Corey as a character. We're setting up the empathy that we're going to share with him for the next however long he's in the movie. So I did like the sort of, that's more of the subversion of just like, this is what you think it's going to be, this is what it's actually going to be. It's just unfortunate again, like I said, that Blumhouse basically spoiled it for everyone, like before a trailer was even released. But I will agree, because I think that just in terms of like not fulfilling character quotas, we'll say, because I think that there's a lot of fat that could have been trimmed out of this. And one of those scenes is the last time we see Lindsay, when Laurie goes to the bar and she says to Lindsay, just tells her, like, I saw the same, or like, I saw Michael Myers in Corey's eyes. And then he's just like, oh, I have someone I want you to talk to. And then the dad's there and they talk to him. And I looked at that as just, because that entire scene could have been taken out. There's really no need for it, because we get that conversation later on when she confronts Allison. And as far as I'm concerned, that should have been the only time that conversation came up, because that was the emotional pinnacle of it. So when we're sitting there with them in the bar and this character that we don't care about, just so he can be like, I wanted to forgive him, and I saw him yesterday, and I pulled up, and what I saw made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. And it's just like that. It's like, Corey didn't kill my son, I know that, but whatever took over on him on the inside, that's what did. And not only does that not make any sense, because whatever took over him just happened literally that morning, or whenever it was. So it's just like, what are we doing here? It's just like everything that she's saying to Lindsay is going to be repeated later on. So I'm great that they found a way to shoehorn Lindsay in for another scene, but it's just like it was so unnecessary. And then when we finally do get to the scene where Laurie, which is kind of, this is what I would say is the scene from H2O where Laurie confronts Josh Hartnett and on the street where it all comes out on the table, where it's just like, what do you think you could do? Just wander around town? That my favorite.
To do that
I love it. It's so good. But like, that's the scene with Allison when they're having that argument, and Allison says like, you just want everyone to be as miserable as you are, and your paranoia is the reason that my friends and parents are dead. Like that should have hit a lot harder than it did. But just because at this point we've watched Laurie go from like character to character, just being like, I don't know about that Corey kid. Like he doesn't seem on the level to me, that when she finally does have that conversation with Allison, it's just like, cool, great. We already knew this. Like there's no, we're just basically running through the same lines again. So that, I think, that could have been tidied up. This movie did not have to be as long as it did. I think this might be the longest one, other than like the zombie director's cuts.
Right.
So, like, this could have been a 90-minute movie easily.
Totally. I just want to address that exchange between the scene where Allison is packing and Laurie is doing whatever. I hated that scene. I hated everything about it. I felt like I just basically wrote just the lines that Allison says to her grandmother. Michael Myers is who you are. You're actually obsessed with death like it's some sort of game. And I need to get out of here before this town kills the one person that actually makes me feel something. And I'm just like, bitch, again. Your grandmother made you feel something when she gave you those fucking wedding rings that you wept at. Remember that, you little ungrateful piece? This is where I get, again, the ungrateful kind of like Scout Taylor Compton-esque, not anywhere near as obnoxious. She's not going, I love my fucking grandkids, or anything like that, but it's close enough. Like, I'm like, you are...
to do that scene, yeah.
Exactly. And blaming Laurie for all of her friends and family dying is bullshit, because it doesn't come from anywhere. It feels like they're not only not writing Allison anymore, it just feels like they're writing stock teenage character fight with authority figure. Yeah. And I know that neither one of these characters would ever be saying these things to each other, because they're smarter than this. They've been smarter than this. They've had more depth of emotion and more dimension than this. And it just felt like a Lifetime TV movie from the 90s, like back in the bad
It was
era,
not set up at all. It was, like it like I can understand Allison being, tired of the bullshit of like these other people in town, but there's no way that, this whole exchange would go down with Laurie, especially after she's only known Corey for 3 days or whatever it is. Like that felt stupid. That could have been handled so much better, and that might have been a thing that, like, again, like if Corey had been a character that was introduced way earlier, like if this had been the first movie, if the stuff that happened with Corey had been implemented in the first movie, or however they wanted to do it, then we could get to this point. So that it did feel like the screenwriters were just like, okay, well, now we gotta write this, and that's it's 4 people again, 4 people to come up with that. I mean, like, it's just a plot contrivance, just to get Allison out of the house, so then everything that can happen, and then we can be surprised Allison's going to come back and save the day at the end.
Of course. Oh God, I hated that too. I really lost interest pretty steadily from this point on with the movie. Like, even Corey's bloody rampage and Laurie's suicide attempt and everything. I was full on. My mother and I were both going, "Oh, come on! You survived in 1978, so you can fucking shoot." Like, we were already disappointed, and then when we realized, oh, she didn't do it, she shot a pumpkin, we were both too tired to be excited and to be like,
I mean, and it was obviously a pumpkin too when you see the pumpkin guts on the on the wall, but
and also
just the
mad. I'm just mad.
that all, like I said, just like no build up to basically give Laurie a resolution of the movie. And again, like, it just the the sanctimonious like spiel of like when she's in the like in Jeremy's house there and just being like, I want to help you, but you can't do this, and then she just leaves, and it's just like, do you want to help him? Because basically everything you've done right now is you've basically set him off, you've given him a reason to be angry and do what he's going to do now, and you've left him unsupervised, so now he has free reign to go around and kill people, so which he's already done. So it's like I feel like if anything, like Laurie is almost the villain of the story here for a bit, because she's the one that's manufacturing this evil inside of him. Like if she had known that, just like, okay, well, the underlying theme of everything here is that, you know, Corey's not evil, but like he was made that way because of the town. But it's that idea is so lost by the end, where she says to Allison, just like,
oh god,
where Allison says to her, like, you were right about him, and it's just like he was taken over by evil or something. And it's just like, and you could have mitigated that damage.
There's no resolution. There is no absolute you can't construe really anything from the end of this movie. Like, it really has nothing to say. It's pretending like it is, and it's even the way Jamie Lee Curtis is promoting it. I did get to see part of an interview she did on Graham Norton's show, just like last week or something, and she was talking about how this movie, they were talking about politics, and then all of a sudden she's like, and that's what this movie does. It asks, like, are these people like Michael Myers and whatnot, like monsters on their own, or do we make them that way? And I'm like, okay. And I muted it for the rest of the time that I saw like little pictures of Michael Myers and things like that, because I'm like, I don't need any more, because I know she's going to spoil something.
So what are they saying? That Michael Myers, like 6-year-old Michael Myers, did something awful before we even met him in that first movie, and the town made him kill his sister? Like, come on.
But that's the thing. It never answers the question, but it never even really asks it in a way that feels cinematic and that actually kind of gets it across. And this is a huge thing for me, because this movie kind of ended up becoming a tiebreaker in a sense, now that it's a trilogy and there's 3, and whenever there's an odd number, it's kind of like, okay, it's no longer balanced. You know, you can't have like complete balance. One component has to tip the scale in one direction or the other. And after having a mostly positive reaction to Halloween 2018 from me, and having a mostly kind of distraught reaction to Halloween Kills, because all of the strongest stuff seems to be set up but not paid off for me. This movie, following suit with Halloween Kills in the sense that I don't enjoy the payoff, seems to kind of like color my expectations for my next David Gordon Green-helmed project. I'm worried that, I mean, if it's something, especially if it's another IP that's already been established. If he does something original, I'll go see it. If he picks up another franchise, I may have to stay away or wait for streaming at least.
Well, I mean, let's not beat around the bush here. We know he's doing Exorcist.
I forgot about that. See,
yeah,
I'm so out
Oh, really? Okay, yeah. No,
okay.
That's gonna be his next movie, The Exorcist.
I may have to wait for streaming.
From Blumhouse. Well, I mean, it might be released on Peacock, since that's, what they seem to be doing.
But I may not even watch it opening weekend. I may just like let all the falderall, and the fallout, happen, and then come to it at some point when I'm ready. Because I know when he's trying to say something and make a point, he completely disposes of all the things that interest me most in his movie. In order to kind of like in service of this message that is so incredibly blunt that you could just like write it on the side of a cardboard box, and yet at the same time, what the fuck do you mean? Like, what are you really? What's the point? It's weird.
That's been my opinion of this.
And overly complicated.
That's been my opinion of this trilogy from the beginning, before it was even complete, is that it doesn't mean anything. It's just like it's puffing itself up to mean something, and it didn't. I'm a little bit kinder to David Gordon Green for this movie, because I feel that with 2018 and Kills, the best parts of those movies were any part that emulated John Carpenter's style. And those seem to be the things that people talk about the most. It's just like, oh, but that scene where he goes through the houses and it's like the one tracking shot, that's great. And all the stuff of like the flashbacks and kills, like that's great. And it's just like, yeah, that's great. But it's like, it's him basically copying someone else's homework. Whereas I feel like with this movie, this was probably the most authentic to what I would imagine his style would be. Just in terms of like anything else, because the stuff that I know is original to him in those first two like Halloween installments that he did, those were the parts where I'm just like could have done without that. I can see obviously he's improved in his direction like over the first two, because he's not like he is new to the horror genre as of Halloween 2018. He's never done horror movies before. So I can at least see that there's probably some understanding that he's picked up along the way. I felt like with this one, he didn't second guess himself as much. Whereas like especially in Kills, they're just like, oh, well, we're going to go with this direction instead for this particular thing. So I do think that that's, again, why I like this one a little bit more. But I also don't look at this movie as part of a trilogy. I just look at this as a standalone movie at this point, and that's what's helped me kind of enjoy it a lot more, despite its faults. Because I mean, if I'm going from like I don't think I will ever again in my life. I mean, I say that now, but I'm never gonna watch 1978 followed by 2018 followed by Kills followed by Hens, because I know that like that's not a trilogy. That's basically the same as like watching 28 Days starring Sandra Bullock and then following that up with the 28 Days Later. Whatever that trilogy is with 28 weeks.
Yeah.
It may as well
That'd
be that.
Hilarious.
So yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't view these stories like that's like I would watch this one on its own because it's just like, oh, it's interesting. It's unique. It's offbeat. It's not good. This is not a good movie by any means, but it's fine. Like that's my general takeaway from it at the end of the day. It's definitely. I want to say, like, it's the most enjoyment I've gotten from a Halloween movie experience since H2O came out, because everything after that kind of went downhill for me. But I mean, that's the thing. Like, Halloween is my franchise from 1 to 7. I don't care about that back half. Do with that whatever you like. Like, I'm a 1 to 7 stan. Yeah. Resurrection onward can burn in hell for all I care.
And me, it's a little more varied than that. But I will say, just kind of like just to kind of like be on par with like where you're going. After seeing it the first time, I was incredibly disappointed, and even my mother. Oh, because that's another funny little tidbit, little tangent. My mom was not scared to go to bed like after the movie was over.
There's not really any horror.
No. We both spent like the bulk of the last half of the movie just kind of going, what? Yeah. So by the time it was over, she was like, well, I didn't have anything to worry about. I'm going to bed. I thought it was hilarious because she's a scaredy cat.
Yeah. What do you make of like sort of the comparisons to Christine?
Oh, I didn't even hear about that.
Oh, well, because I mean, like Corey Cunningham is like Arnie Cunningham from Christine, and there's a lot of the same beats that we hit with, he has glasses and then the bullies stomp on them and he just like turns darker throughout the movie. They're like basically the whole junkyard scene with the bullies.
Well, there's any kind of like originality. Yeah. That we can.
There's no originality in anything at this point, but yeah, there are a lot of parallels.
Yeah, no, but I mean, if it's that in your face, like, again, you know how I feel about really self-conscious homage. Like, I'm glad actually that I didn't, because I haven't seen Christine in over 20 years, and maybe even more, over 30 years.
I watched it last night or the other night, like, and I'd never seen it before. Like, I watched it because I was hearing like all of the similarities, because I've owned it for quite a bit, but I'm just kind of like, I've seen bits and pieces of it, and I've never been. Like, oh, I gotta watch that. And I watched it, and I saw it
as a kid.
It's fine.
I was bored as a child. I remember being bored. I probably like it more now, but
maybe like it has its moments, but I think that like where it fails is sort of like the character component, because like I do not get the same sense of like the character in that movie that I do, at least from Corey in this movie.
Okay.
And I kind of like, maybe we should segue that into sort of like talking about him becoming the shape.
Okay. You want to start?
Well, first I just want to say that okay, that first scene of where like Dr. Mathis and Deb, whatever. By the way, was it a surprise to anyone that they were hooking up? I don't think so, but
No. Or that they were like on the chopping block either. Like I was ready for somebody to die at that point.
yeah.
I was like,
well,
I'm ready for this to be a horror movie again.
It had been a while, yeah. I do
Yep.
want to say though, because like the moment where she comes outside and you see Corey, and he's got the scarecrow mask at this point, so he's not being Michael Myers yet. But that reveal when she turned on the lights and you just see him, and he's got like the plastic bag over the guy's head and he's just stabbing his face, like that was really, I don't want to say scary, but it just like it looked very realistic in its depiction of violence. Like I thought it was very effectively shot. But then we kind of from there jump back to her running into the house, and then we get the fucking Michael traditional kill of pinning someone to the wall, which can we do something new? Like that has been in every movie.
Yeah.
And they showed that in the
His head
trailer.
at it, I was like, "You've done it before. You've done it before. Why are you tilting your head like, oh, she died different? No, she didn't."
Yeah. They showed that in the trailer. Like that's the thing. Like there's not as many kills in this as Halloween Kills, obviously, or 2018. No. I don't think, but it's a lot of them were kind of like obscured, which I don't have like a huge problem with, but it's just like the ones that are shown are just like the ones that we've seen already, like that one. That it was just kind of like pointless. But I do want to say like the thing that was funny afterwards is right after that double murder, and you just see Corey kind of like there, like like he's like the Robin to Michael's Batman, and it cuts to Corey and he's on his motorbike, and then the camera starts to like shift behind him. And I full on was like, oh my God, is Michael on the back of that motorcycle holding on to it? Because that's what I thought it was. It was like they were going from like from murder set piece to set piece of just like, okay, hop on, I'm gonna drive you to the next place. We're gonna kill some more people now. And honestly, like if that had happened, if that's what they did, or even if he was on like a little sidecar, it was like one of those things, I would have been like, this is fine. This is hilarious. At this point, I don't care. I don't care what they do. I don't care what they do, but like, I full on thought that. But then when we see Allison, I'm just like, oh, okay. But how did they get that? How did they coordinate? That's the thing that I'm more curious about. Is just like, did he have full on conversations with Michael where he's just like, all right, we're gonna go kill these people over here now, and they're like, Michael's just sort of like, okay, and then follows him there, or did he like
a Lenny and George of mice and men situation? No, I think they speak telepathically. I mean, they speak in pictures, mind pictures.
Yeah.
So he probably just thought of the house, and Michael knew where to go, and was just like, all right, and then they just kind of intuitively knew, take a left here. That's the first time I've even given any thought to it, because that's how detached I was from the action at that point. But I did think one thing that actually was kind of consistent in terms of like a through line from the trilogy was something I acknowledged in Halloween Kills in Halloween 2018 was just kind of like reinforced by this movie. It doesn't make me like it anymore, but just the fact that like Corey needs the mask at that point where he's like going and beating up Michael and taking his mask and running off so he can go kill the bully kids who are in band. I can't. It's too funny. Anyway, so he needs the mask. I started to get a sense, because I was still grasping at straws for the first time. Like trying to like find something to like be interested in. And I was like, oh, okay, he needs the mask the way Sartain did, just to kind of like know what it feels like to be this all-powerful, like the legend. I want to know how it feels to kill and be that, because I've only killed in this stupid little scarecrow thing, and I want to inhabit the ship. I'm like, okay, that's kind of interesting. And also, again, paralleled against like the cop in the flashback of kills, and then later Karen in that night of 2018, standing in his footsteps and wondering even just speculating what is it like to look. What was he thinking? And again, the movie punishing people for any kind of speculation as to what it's like to be Michael Myers, and what it is to what must he be thinking? What must it be like to be in his shoes or in his mask? I thought, okay, that's at least consistent with the trilogy. So that was kind of cool. Kind of, but I do have to say Corey's suicide. Okay. Laurie has been chastised the world over for eons for dropping a knife twice. And now in this final we'll see, final chapter of the Laurie Strode sagas, she stupidly grabs it out of Corey's neck. Because number one, when somebody stabs themselves in the neck, you're not going to stop whatever it is that they've got going by pulling the knife out. If anything, you're making it worse, because he's just going to bleed out. So what was she doing? Like, and she should know better than that. But also the irony, I understood the second time around. I'm like, oh, right. Because the irony was he was holding a knife and being kind of framed for like pushing the kid down and I'm going to fucking kill you, you little shit. And now what he was once in the position of like having people point the finger and accuse him, he's going to do that to Laurie. I don't like it. It's a parallel. I saw it the second time around. I don't think it's strong. I don't think it's it's not interesting enough to resonate with me on an emotional level.
And it's more so just like, it's just a continuation of the drama of Allison and Laurie's little tiff there. That's
so stupid. How could you? How could you?
I mean, I think at that point, not that I want to give like any of the writers any credit whatsoever, but it might have just come down to a thing where, like I said before, just like, hey, you got to make your movie, but now now there has to be the Michael confrontation.
And it was so abrupt.
It was so abrupt. It was dark. Like there was so much that I couldn't even see going on.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, it looked like there was some good action in there. Like it wasn't all terrible. Like he smashed her face through a glass cabinet, which was actually her that, she insisted on doing it. And I've come to the conclusion now that there is no perfect showdown between Michael and Laurie. You could take pieces of everything and make the perfect conclusion. Like you could, I mean, because there's the scene in H2O where they go to the kitchen and she pulls the drawer out and she starts throwing the knives at him. Like they could, if they had taken stuff that they did in this movie, and that would have been the kitchen scene of just like, pinning him down to a thing or whatever. But, just to culminate in the final thing of just like her chopping his head off at the end, I think that, when you talk about like what, like the final fight between Michael and Laurie, I'm always just going to see that as H2O, because even though that's very abrupt in and of itself, like that scene lasts like 2 seconds, it's still, the emotional punch that it packs is so much greater than what it is, that's what like, I'll remember that forever. I'll remember like Laurie walking up the drive with the shadow of her holding the axe and just being like, Michael, that's great. That's great cinema. She was given cinema there. And, Michael coming down from the ceiling, like that's all good.
And for me,
No, go.
No, but for me, like the unfortunately, like the perfect final showdown for me is even though she gets saved in the end by a man, nothing's ever gonna be on par with, or nothing thus far has been on par with the first movie. Like I mean, just the build up to her just being alone in a dark house, calling her friends names, thinking it's a joke, which was not a trope at the time, has become a trope, but it still works. And then the discovery of her friends, and then the discovery of, him, and then just what happens within that house, what happens with her screaming to the neighbors on the street, what happens to her crossing the street and banging on the front door, Tommy taking his fucking sweet ass time getting to her, and then her, with the knitting needle, and then the going upstairs, and then the children being in peril, and then her trying to send him on a wild goose chase with the closet and everything. I mean, it is a series of sequences that I feel works more solidly than anything that has come afterwards. And you can't recreate that, but there's got to be a way to make it,
I think, that
work.
Yeah. I mean, like,
again.
And that's why there is no good, perfect timeline, because the only movie that really is perfect is the original. And that's, when John Carpenter and Deborah Hill are just like, well, no, we don't want to do any sequels, but the studio's like, no, we need more sequels. That, we should all understand their fatigue and their resistance at this point, because it's just like, look what it becomes. Like, nothing's gonna work out. There's so many hands in the cookie jar of just being like, people being like, this is what we want and this is what we need and this is what it should be, that it's not going to be good. They're like, we had the perfect movie, move on. That's why the anthology idea of, as much as I do like Halloween 2, it's I don't know how I would re-rank it if it would change, but I still think that, like, those first 3 movies are the best. But the fact that we did get Halloween 2, that kind of set a precedent. So it ruined it. If the next movie was to be Season of the Witch, this would have been amazing. This would have been like, like the movie equivalent of like American Horror Story. Let's just like bring back the same people, the same actors, have new ones in there, but the same production team, and just make with the same style, the same John Carpenter style and the music, different stories set on Halloween night. And that would have been amazing. And I mean, I don't get me wrong, I love that we have Michael Myers stories and sequels that go on, but I mean, like, the fact of the matter is that we should take them for what they are. We can't just be like, well, this is what needs to happen, this is what it is, because it's just like, nothing's good. Nothing is going to be good. These are all inferior movies, and that's okay if you like them, and it's okay if you don't like them, but nobody should be saying that, or even upset or surprised of where this hens ended up.
And also, I mean, arguably, because it is show business, any sequel that was good enough to achieve success financially, of course, is going to be followed up by God knows what, because it was successful. So there is no way within this particular slasher subgenre, fortunately and unfortunately, like, depends on your perspective, I suppose, but there is no way to end something, or I guess in this franchise, to end it successfully, because they're just going to keep churning them out until they stop making money. And the reason they're going to stop making money is because people aren't going. I mean, what's funny, okay, I got to talk to I didn't get to talk to her, I actually got to talk to her through my mother. My mom had a conversation with my sister, who saw the movie in the theater, and she talked about the general feeling. She was with a lot of people who were also seeing it for the first time, wanted to see how they felt about it, were all excited, and the general just kind of like malaise that just kind of flatlined in the audience. People were cheering, people were scared, people were ready, and then by the end of the movie, people were disgruntled, people were uncomfortable, people were like, let's go home. People were over it. And I'm wondering what the box office drop off, because we're still, as we're recording this, in the first weekend of this movie's release. I'm wondering what the drop off is going to be in the second weekend and the third. And I mean, luckily it's released in the perfect season for it to still maybe do really, really, really well. But I don't know.
I think the fact that we've also got it released on Peacock as well, that is going to hurt the box office numbers, because I think that they came in 10 million below what they had estimated.
Sure.
So I don't know. There's a lot of people who are very against the day and date streaming releases. Like I saw Christopher Landon posted something on Twitter just being like, no, this is not copacetic. So
no,
you know,
you're gonna kill the movie industry this way.
Yeah.
But also just to say, I started to say, and there's a good place to just kind of cut it off. Not that we have to stop talking, but I mean, I see the time and, you know, whatever. But after the first time I saw it, I was very disappointed. Went into the second time, really not looking forward to it. And then I started to get, you know, I did like this, and I did like this, and I did like this. And I was watching the movie thinking, okay, maybe independently on its own, I can enjoy this. But again, just the road from point A to point B to C to Z at the very end, I'm crestfallen by the end of it. It didn't satisfy me either time I watched it. Doesn't mean I'll never be satisfied, but right now, but that said, to completely dismiss it as that sucked entirely, no, I think there was a lot of promise. I think they just didn't follow through.
I mean, maybe that's why the studio released all the information about Corey, because they knew that like people were going to be pissed off, so they wanted to soften the blow. But I've been hearing people saying this is worse than Resurrection, and I mean, like, okay, let's pump the brakes a little bit on that. Like, Resurrection is, you know, and I know it has its supporters, but like that movie it's not a movie. It's not.
I don't even enjoy the setup of Resurrection.
Yeah,
no.
If you want to watch like 90 minutes of shaky camera that with no context behind anything, then sure. But
but I own it.
Well, I own it. I just bought the 4K box set. That's the only way you could get 6 and H2O on 4K was to get all three of them together. So
right.
Yes, I do own 2 copies of that movie now. So it is what it is.
With this movie, I seriously was considering, particularly after the first time, and then it got just confirmed for me after the second screening. I don't think I need to own this one, honestly. And I'm really seriously considering selling my Halloween Kills Blue.
Did you already sell the Rob Zombie ones?
Oh yeah, a long time ago. Yeah. That was like pretty much like within a month of like us doing the old pod.
Yeah.
Where we did the commentaries for those. Tried to straddle. Didn't we watch, like, you were watching one version and I was watching another?
Well, I think you had the theatrical.
Just kind of pausing,
yeah, you had the theatrical cuts. I had the directors. I'm sure this movie, Hens, there will be an extended cut because there was so much promotional material that showed like extra little bits that were not in the movie. So like there's probably more kills. Like they do that on purpose. It's just like, we want you to film more, but we're gonna cut it down and just put like the bare minimum of what, and when I say bare minimum, it's still like 2 hours of movie out in the theater. It'll satisfy. And they've still yet to release an extended cut of the first movie, because there's a whole alternate ending to that Michael coming to Laurie's compound. So that, you know, that they're going to release a trilogy of box sets, mark it way up, and then be like, this is the only way you can see the alternate version of that. Like it's all a strategy, and I know, like, I'm gonna buy it just so I can have it, but
and I'll just watch it at a friend's who bought it.
Yeah.
I'll Bogart off somebody else, and I know I won't be satisfied. I'll be like, well, that was a waste of time. I'm glad I didn't spend money.
Exactly.
Let's watch something good.
Anyway, I think
I still like 2018 though. I still will watch that.
I think we've exhausted the Hens talk, so let's get to the cherry picker.
It's not like we kill people on purpose.
Okay, cherry on top. What are you thinking?
I really don't know.
I mean, I'm gonna say Corey. Because I think that, you know, regardless of like how, he did. We didn't even talk about Rohan Campbell is his name, if I'm saying that correctly. But yeah, he did a great job, and that's the thing. Like everything I heard about the Corey character, I was just like, Oh, great. Here we go. And he turned out to be the most interesting and like well-defined part of the entire movie, even though I don't like where he landed. I still think that everything to do with him leading up to that point was the most successful. That was probably like the surprise for me too. It was just like that character. So I'm gonna go with him.
Okay, and I'll be on board. More so, less for like, you know, how I feel about the writing, but as far as the performance, he had a very, very hard job as an actor to make arguably, you know, really kind of questionable, but sometimes, you know, just bold directions that the character was taking or could be taking, you know, that when we were unsure. To make them interesting and to actually be connected. Like he was connected to absolutely everything that he did. And I never had, I don't think I ever had a moment with Corey where he was written in such a way, the way I felt like, you know, with Allison and with Laurie, where I'm like, you are not Laurie and you are not Allison. These words would never come out of your mouth. Yeah. It was just like, okay, this is just poorly written, but it's all part. His role is consistent, I think.
He also, I mean, and he also had like,
I guess,
big shoes to fill as well, because it's like, you know, he carries so much of this movie, and after coming off of like the last two, where I think, and especially since most people are probably expecting Jamie Lee Curtis to take upon that role, that you know, I hope that, you know, people appreciate, you know, him and the actor for what he did here, and don't kind of take it out on him, and, you know, for this to be something that hurts his career.
People are talking about how hot he is already.
He was, yeah. He was almost like the She's All That version, you know, like
Freddie.
No, like the
like
Rachel Lee
Cook, like,
because he came in at the beginning and he was just sort of like, you know, he had that way about him, and then like, you know, the glasses came off and he had like the edge just like burn it down. It's just like, oh my, but yeah.
Or even before that when he was just tortured and sad, like even that, like I got the appeal. Allison, I was like, I get it, honey. I mean, especially in my 20s, absolutely. So and also it just in answer to like the people who are tearing this movie apart because they think he's the worst part of it or anything like that. I do disagree with that. There are a lot of people who are just like, you know, he shouldn't have even been in the movie, and I'm like, no, he just should have been handled better. But I agree with you. Let's make him cherry on top. It'll piss some people off.
Yeah, who cares about that? All right. Anyway, last week for the cherry picker, we asked you who deserves to die the most in Happy Death Day. And are you ready? Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
Eddie? Yes. Spaghetti? Laurie Spengler, which was my nomination, versus Julie Gelbman, which was yours, a.k.a. Tree's mom.
Yeah.
Across Patreon, Instagram, and YouTube, the final tally was 723 for Laurie versus 65 for Julie.
Thank you, guys.
Do you want to maybe explain your nomination a little bit more? Because you didn't really give a lot of context last week. You just like, I just want to try something out.
No, I said I made a case. She did something dangerous. She did the most dangerous thing.
The candle wasn't lit.
I don't care. You pushing somebody's face into a cake is dangerous. There are people who've been knocked unconscious. People have broken noses. People have just kind of like fallen into the cake and not gotten back up. And then there's like the person who pushed them in going, come on. And then like trying to pull their head like this dead weight like out of the cake and everything. It's so dark. It is so dark. It's chilling.
I've never seen that.
I think it's unforgivable. And I did want to see if anybody would even vote. And the fact that 65 people stepped up and voted for her. Thank you guys. That's awesome.
I wonder if they voted for her based on that cake thing, or just the fact that they're like, yeah, this is funny. Let's vote for
I don't care. I don't care. Let's hear.
Let's see what they're saying.
Yeah.
So Mendejo says, Laurie, I need to know the thought process for choosing Julie, which I guess you just told us.
Yeah.
Blue
totally.
Box 87 says, I don't remember anything about the mom, but I pick her just for naming her daughter Tree.
It was Teresa, but okay.
Yeah, Tree was. I think
I
Tree
respect
was her what she wanted to be called. But
her nickname.
But yeah. Kayla Turn says,
That's
Laurie
funny.
for sure. How many days did we see play out? And I still can't remember who Julie is. Rebecca Unbound Millard says, LOL, why is Julie an option? Is it for naming her daughter Tree? If so, I'm changing my vote to her. Carter Ludwig says, this movie succeeds at many things. Making more than one character hateable is not one of them. I think there's a few hateable. I don't
Yeah,
say hateable,
right.
but
There's more than a couple.
yeah. There was some more that you could have chose there besides.
We brought 'em
Tree's
up.
mom. Yeah. Silent
No,
Saturn
but
says,
I even said that it bothered me more. It irked me more than anything else I saw in the movie. So
yeah, I know.
when she pushed her face into
you're
it, I was like,
weird.
oh, that's wrong.
Weirdo. Silent Saturn says, based on the options, Laurie by default, I guess. Though I do like her. Who doesn't have homicidal fantasies about killing those dumb bitches who make our life miserable, but tend to be well liked by everyone else and super successful at everything despite not working for it? Laurie is doing it all for us.
Wow, so far I'm way more comfortable in the company of my vocal minority. That little darkness.
I think
there,
Laurie
no
was
damage
doing
done.
it for herself, but let's see. HIC92 says, Laurie for sure, even though I liked her in part 2. I don't remember Laurie in part 2, so. Sucked, says Julie, because her death gives Tree purpose and depth. Otherwise, Tree would be a dry biscuit that I would wish stayed dead due to her racket behavior and her copycat delivery of the word bye. Did I do that
Her
right?
racket behavior.
Maybe he
I
meant
think she meant ratchet,
ratchet. Yeah, he or she. Ratchet. It says racket.
or
but-
he or she, whoever
Yeah.
they meant ratchet.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Whatever.
Grant Dempsey. I'm voting for Julie Gelbman because I can't fathom why Eddie picked her. And as Billy Loomis said, it's better if there's no motive.
Nice.
Kira
I dig that.
Wood says definitely Laurie. Tree's mom is already dead. She didn't do anything. Besides, I guess, push her daughter's face into a cake. Whatever.
I argue. I contest. Go on.
Desiree Perez says, how can Eddie pick Tree's mom when she already died?
Because we're not
SMFH, come
okay.
on, Eddie, but my vote is for Laurie.
People, okay, you have to understand, if you are listening, and I hope you are, we're not saying who deserved to die the most in the sense that, like, oh, they already died, so no. No, who, while they were alive, and their behavior or whatever impact they had on us, deserves to die the most. She committed a heinous act while she was alive. She's dead. Good. That's my Betty
Good.
Davis. Go
Good.
on.
Yeah. And she does, just in terms of the cherry picker rules, she does qualify because she's a character that we do see, at least through the video recording. I think that was one of the specific rules that we went over, but that's why I didn't say anything, and I thought it was funny that you picked her anyway. But Thomas Baker says Laurie dies all the way, and how dare you, Eddie, for picking Tree's dead mom on here? Cakes are made for eating and smashing people's faces.
Oh, see, you and I, sir, we would not get along. I disagree. I disagree respectfully.
Oscar, with a 5 instead of the S, says, why Julia's nominated? Stop dead mom shaming now. And Invisible Woman says, wait, the mom is already dead. LOL.
Oh my God, guys, you're so literal. Go on.
So literal.
Is that it?
That was it. So
right.
I get to choose.
Like we've never picked people who died before.
I
Anyway,
know,
whatever.
Yeah. I okay, well, keeping it in line with, picking moms, I'm going to go with Joan Cunningham, Corey's mom, because, God, she was just insufferably obnoxious. Like, there's she did not need to be that awful. And then there was this weird, almost like incestuous thing. Like she kissed him on the lips after smacking him.
Yeah.
What was that about? What was this? I mean, I don't want to say anything bad about like the actress who plays her or anything, but I just felt like, what is she? She just went in there and she was just like trying to steal, like when she was working off of Jamie Lee Curtis. I just like imagine like, what was that day on set like? It's just like, who's this woman who's trying to upstage Jamie Lee Curtis with all of her like,
Well,
the town turned on him because of your monster.
I'm glad that I actually made a Betty Davis reference a few seconds ago, because now I'm going to make a Joan Crawford reference. I felt like her name was Joan because, well, Joan Crawford, there's nothing that that we know of that has been reported as far as like an incestuous relationship with her children. She is like kind of like the epitomal, just off the charts, batshit mother. Like the mommy dearest legend pervades, and I feel like she was named Joan just so we could expect her to be an off the charts crazy mom.
There was also this whole like sort of through line with the Cunningham family that was almost more in line with like the Rob Zombie Michael Myers. And just like, so like that was the thing. Like John Carpenter's Michael Myers like was evil. Like he is just evil, unexplained. Yeah. Whereas Corey, if there's anything that kind of drove him to it, like other than the town, probably like look at the home. It all, like Debbie Salt. It always starts at the home. It always starts with the parents, and it's almost like that they were doing the Rob Zombie Michael Myers thing with him, and that's like another inconsistency I found with the movie.
I love that you made that observation, because I did not, because I don't really think about the Rob Zombie movies that often. But you know what you just did? You made me like the depiction of environment shaping a killer more in Rob Zombie's vision than I did in David Gordon Green's. I will get, if we ever discuss Rob Zombie's Halloween, I'll get into why, but wow. Okay. Doesn't mean I like the movie, but that particular element of it, I like. Okay. So my turn?
Yeah, go for it.
I'm going to pick the other unjustly depicted East Coaster. I'm going to pick Captain Brooklyn with Terry. I don't even know what his last name is, but just Terry. Just the fact that, okay, number one, he's toxic, so there's that. But also, like, toxic and a little shit. Like, even he's inconsistent because, like, yeah, okay, I understand. He's belittled by his father. I mean, that's very Stephen King, too. I've been belittled by my father, so I got to belittle, your protagonist. Like, I'm pulled right off the pages of it and every other Stephen King bully movie or book. Anyway, so, but in addition to that, like, yeah, he's belittled by his father, but he's also really, really, when he finally kills, when he finally discovers his friend Billy in the driver's seat, he almost does a gay gasp, like oh, like, oh my God, he's dead. Like all of a sudden he turns into a scream queen from one of the Friday the 13th movies from the 80s,
dead.
One of the sequels. Exactly. Oh my God. And then the fact that he shoots, he's just like, hey, take this, motherfucker. Well, he's, whatever. Oh, that's more Busta Rhymes than in Brooklyn, but whatever. So it's just kind of like, but it's just like trying to shoot fucking Corey, and he shoots his dad and then runs up and doesn't even like really check on him. But then he sees his friend trapped under she was a piece of shit too, though. I hated the Margot, the sympathetic one who still did nothing. Yeah. I know most people might expect
because the other one is like Stacy's dead, and then she just says, and you are too, because he was fine.
I know, it's so stupid.
Now you are.
I had more fun with a similar character. I mean, he wasn't a bully per se, but he was, he did kind of have like just that toxic masculinity vibe. But I think of like Michael from Halloween 5, the boyfriend of Tina. And I prefer that, that kind of character.
Maybe he was an
I don't
homage
remember
to
he
him.
talked like that. He looked like Danny Zuko, though, and this guy again, that's another thing. He's, okay, anyone who wears a fucking Letterman jacket and acts with the bravado of a jock when they're on the fucking, like, marching band, fuck you. Like, no, you're in fucking marching band, be a decent person. That's where they go. The decent people are in marching band. Back me up, people. Anyway,
Not in
I picked Terry
Haddonfield.
because every time he was on screen, I was just like, I know exactly who you are. You're not interesting. I'm not even getting like, when does he get to die? When does he get to die? And then when he died, I didn't even feel gratified by it. I was just kind of like, oh, thank God. So just wheel out the glucose drip. I'm ready for a refresher because I'm flatlining with this movie. But Terry, yeah. Just Terry.
Yeah.
But I'm going to do impressions of him, so that'll make him the most interesting.
What are you drinking, milk?
You got milk, college boy?
He's
Oh
like
my God.
intimidating hoodlums from high school.
I know, right? Like, oh my God, like and they're
It's
like
like
again,
David
he's
Gordon Green and them, where they
Corey's
were
like
just
a
like
head
dipping
taller
their
than him.
hands in like, what are all the different kind of like tropes or archetypes that we can put together and just make like the
stupid.
new kind of the Gen Z bully that no one's ever seen before. Like, what the hell?
I tell you, if I was 24 and a group of high school kids, let's put it this way, that particular group of high school kids, I could have taken them. Mm-hmm. Like at 24, I mean, in high school even, I might have had a little trouble. We're all on the same eye line. But when I'm 24 and I'm looking down at them and he's getting in my face like he's going to kick my ass, just push him. Just push him down. Yeah. Come on, Corey. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, stupid, unnecessary, and yet gratuitous bully depiction. That's how I feel. So kill him. Kill him.
Anyway.
Kill him again.
Kill
him a lot.
That's this week's Brooklyn picker.
Yeah.
You can vote on Instagram, YouTube, Patreon. I do want to welcome some new Patreon supporters. So give it up to, if I can find it, Michelle Gustafson and Morgan Schmidt. Welcome aboard.
For both of you. Yeah. Yay, welcome.
And if you want to support us on Patreon, all tiers do get access to new episodes of The Cherry Picker, usually the Thursday or Friday before. I think the last one was available Wednesday. So Andre made very quick work of that. Also, thank you to Andre, our editor of The Cherry Picker.
Thank you, Andre.
Who makes that possible. Also, if you are supporting on my Patreon, the Freddy Krueger tier does give you access to our bonus episode, the Cherry Picker After Dark, and we've got we're not done with the Halloween franchise because we've got some more spooky season special Halloween franchise. I don't know, I'm just like adding words in at this point, which is exactly the episode this month. So that's going to be available at the end, like October 30th, October 31st.
Just in time.
You can expect that. Other than that, social media wise, you can find us on Instagram at the Cherry Picker Pod. If you're new to the Cherry Picker and you're watching us on YouTube, the RSS feed link is in the descriptions down below. And if you are listening to us, you can also watch us on YouTube. The channel name is The Cherry Picker. Subscribe and comment and like and all that fun stuff. Where can they find you individually, Mr. Eduardo?
I'm not telling them where I live. Oh, you mean online? I'm on Instagram at Edward is Truth, one phrase, continuous, and the same thing on YouTube. Look for me. How about you, Zach Cherry?
You can find me on my YouTube channel, Zach Cherry. You can find me on Instagram at Retro Bitchface and on Twitter at ZachCherry8. What do we got going on next week?
You told me and I wrote it down. Oh, yeah. It's that movie, Scriptorum.
Scream 4. Yeah.
Yeah. Scriforum.
Anyway, it's been a long Halloween season, especially leading up to this movie. Can't wait until next year when we start to do the other Halloween movies, since we don't have any new ones coming out. So I don't know what we're gonna do next when it comes to the Halloween franchise. So stay tuned for that. But thank you for watching, for listening, and we will be right back.